All right, I promised myself that I will not take all day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever. We went over a lot of the evidence yesterday, but there's more. And as I said, I only have one opportunity to speak with you. I don't know what the prosecution is going to respond with. Hopefully it will just be rebutting what we have said, nothing new that you haven't heard, because I think it's fair to say that during the opening argument by Ms. Silverman, you heard everything that went on in this case. And I'm sure, as I said, it shouldn't have taken 3 days and 9 weeks and 8 years to convict Ms. Sementilli if she was guilty. It took all that time to try and convict her because I submit to you she is not guilty. And I told you some of the reasons. And I was thinking last night, and we'll go over, the evidence like the phone records and all those things a little more again, because it occupied such a significant part of this case. But I was thinking about that letter again that was written by Mr. Baker after he had entered his plea of guilty. These are some of the thoughts I had, and I'll express a few more. No reason to write this letter. If she was a co-conspirator, why lie to her, having a letter delivered by her attorneys which he did not know would get turned over. He's a liar, he's a murderer, but despite all his inconsistencies, he has remained consistent about one thing, that Monica is innocent, and he had nothing to gain by testifying. No reason to lie about this. We can take this down. This is what he said on the witness stand when asked about the letter. It was just a message to her to let her know how I felt. I didn't want to think. I just did it just to be as ruthless. I didn't want her to think I did it just to be as ruthless and heinous as they are trying to make it out to be. Like it was cold. And it was, but I wanted her to know. Now, what did he want her to know? He wanted her to know what was in the letter. As much as I want to apologize and say I'm sorry for what happened to him and anyone else, since it will never be enough for me to emphasize, especially to you, this all happened in 2007, because remember this is written in 2023, 24. It was actually, the intent was to actually deliver a gift for your birthday. Unknowing it was an unforeseen disaster, a disaster to which I felt horrible. It got worse by my own personal hell. It was supposed to have been a good thing, but it went horribly wrong. So why did he write it? He wasn't testifying. He didn't have a deal. He wasn't testifying against anybody because he had an agreement to say they were guilty, even if they weren't. Never did that with Monica. Why did he write that letter? After he pled guilty, mind you. So he pled guilty not to an accident, not to a disaster. He knows what he pled guilty to. He pled guilty to first-degree murder. Premeditated, malice aforethought, knowing he was going to kill somebody, intending to kill somebody, and killing somebody, and following through. That's what he pled to. But remember, when he entered his plea, and you have the transcript, nobody went into what happened with him. Now the prosecution will tell you, and the prosecution is right, if you're willing to go into court and say, I am guilty of all the charges, there's not much anyone can do but say, you are convicted. And without a deal, without a promise ahead of time like Mr. Austin got, there's not much the court can do except to do what it did and sentence you to the maximum, the only sentence for what he pled to, life without parole. And I submit to you, as I submitted yesterday, had he been asked, simply asked, wouldn't have changed the plea, wouldn't have changed the charge, wouldn't have changed the sentence. Tell us, Mr. Baker, what did you do? Was Monica Sementilli your co-conspirator? Did she join you? It's not going to change your plea. You're pleading guilty. Just tell us. That's what you were charged with. Now, you pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Turned out the conspirator was Christopher Austin. But just tell us, did she join you? And then he would have been on the spot. But not really. Because his story that he tried to cover up in that letter, what he testified to on the witness stand, again, with no deal, he didn't have to do anything. We couldn't call him to the stand and force him to testify. What are we going to do to him? Hold him in contempt? He's doing life without parole. We'll give you 3 days of contempt. He didn't have to do any of that. And it became clear to us, thankfully, well, not thankfully, they should have asked him. They should have asked him.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. The people have no right to do that.
Excuse me. You can argue. It's overruled.
No right to do that. Okay. Her name was right in the charge. But if you read the transcript, Mr. Baker, you are charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder with the use of a weapon. For some reason, the name conspiracy with Monica Sementilli was left out. It was in the charge, and they will argue that to you. He pled guilty to the charge. Of course he was pleading guilty to conspiring with Monica. That's not what they read to him in court. And I submit to you it was not an accident. Because I submit to you it was made clear to them that had he been asked, are you pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit murder with Monica Sementilli, he would have said no. She wasn't the one involved. It was somebody else. Now, he probably would not have named Mr. Austin dead, who was protecting him, man of his word. If that means anything to a brutal killer. But, submit to you, he would not have said, I plead guilty to that. They let him plead guilty to the charge without mentioning her name or asking him who he conspired with. And remember also something interesting. We're not allowed to, she says. The charge included all these overt acts. Remember? You're going to see all these, they call them overt acts, which are necessary. Just one has to be found true, and as the prosecution said, you don't even have to agree on which one, and there are like 50 of them. They called up, they planned it, they went to the scene, they hid the knife, whatever's in there. Everything in there is what the testimony was that occurred. And if this was Mr. Baker's trial, you'd have to find one of them true, and if you find Ms. Sementilli guilty, which I implore you she is not, based on the facts of this case, then you're going to have to find one of the overt acts was true. But a lot of them are true. She called up. We went to. I drove to the residence. I had a knife, whatever. That's not what this case is about. If Baker is guilty, he's guilty of all those overt acts. If she is proven guilty, she is guilty of all those overt acts. The ones that are true have nothing to do with who killed Fabio. They have to do with the fact that he was killed. But the point is, to be found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, as I recall, and you'll be instructed, you have to meet all the elements, and you have to have committed at least one of the overt acts. So, one of the overt acts, a lot of them involved Monica Sementilli. Called her up, you planned it, you went there, she told you he was going to be alone, she made sure he was there. There must be 20 of them. Why didn't the prosecution, when they took his plea, include one of the overt acts? That they could have done. That's the charge. They didn't name one of them. They just had him plead no contest, equivalent of guilty, to committing a conspiracy with at least one overt act. And had they said one of the 20 or whatever's there, you look there, where her name is mentioned, I submit to you he would have said no. Because it became clear after he was sentenced to life without parole, and nobody could do anything to him or for him, and no one could say he made a deal, and no one could say he got a bargain, and no one could say he got 15, and no one could say anything, because he got the maximum, that it became clear that Monica was not with him. And he was willing to testify to that under oath. Now, oath to him, you can say, means nothing. It may not. He distinguished between it when he lied to us when we met with him the 12 or 13 times. Yeah, I lied about this, like that, but I wasn't under oath, and he wasn't. We can't put him under oath. So he told you he told the truth on the witness stand, and the prosecution will probably point out many times when they say he lied even under oath. But it was our duty, representing a client who had pleaded not guilty, which means it is a total denial of all of the charges, and we know the person, and we only knew one at the time, Robert Baker, had committed the murder. It was clear. It was clear from the February 14th, 2017, it was clear. And I told you why I thought these gentlemen and those who preceded them should have arrested him right on the spot, get him off the street, find out what happened if you could from him. Find the second murderer. Don't have the family, keep the family in danger. That was the danger, leaving him on the street and leaving Austin on the street. But he made it clear when we met with him, the only thing he made clear that clearly he was consistent with throughout our interviews of him was that she was not involved at all. So what were we supposed to do? Not put him on the stand? When we believe that was the truth, and that's what the evidence showed? The one person who was there, well, two people could have established that she wasn't there. Mr. Baker did, in his stumbling, mumbling way, but he was consistent about that. He lied about Jaybird, and he certainly lied there in that letter. But he didn't lie about whether she was involved or not. And the other one who could have exonerated her as well, and should have, if he had any real conscience or guts, was Christopher Austin. Because he had said, remember, all along in the Perkins and all the rest, he didn't even know her. He didn't know her name. He didn't know anything about her. And I'll get to what they told him after that about what he had to say. He even said to Miss Stagel, you tell me what you need, and I'll give it to you. But I want something in return, and she couldn't give it then. Nor, am I saying, would she? He wanted to go home and see his wife and daughters. He had to wait to get his deal until he came down here with Mr. Aval, and you know all about that. So Mr. Austin, after all, there's only two people who know what happened that day. One of them pled guilty and is doing life and said she had nothing to do with it. One got the deal of the century, was told what to say, and said it. Yeah, I remember there was some calls. One, I don't know, was there one? Was there two? Was there three? Was there... Let me read, and I'll get back to this letter. This is a verbatim transcript from the tape of the proffer that was played to you. Proffer is no more, as you know, than an interview of the person who wants the deal, and now the prosecution is going to find out whether he's earned the deal. And remember how you earn a deal. You tell the truth. Okay, that's good. And the information has to be valuable. Why wasn't the proffer just tell the truth? Why does it have to be valuable? Because he's worthless if he just gets up there and says, I killed Fabio Sementilli and I did it with Robert Baker and she had nothing to do with it. Not only is that not valuable, because they already had Baker, right, doing life. They already had him confessing in Vancouver to the conspiracy to commit murder. They could have sentenced him to 30 to life. That would have been justice and the end of this case. But it wouldn't have gotten them hurt. And that's what they wanted. And I don't question their sincerity. I question their judgment. And the two before them. And the two before them. And the two before them. What was it, 10, 15? Not one of them said, this is not a bad idea to not go up there and see Austin. We shouldn't leave Baker on the street, There's something wrong here. It's not working. We're trailing her around 24 hours a day with trackers and tailors, and we're learning nothing more than she had an affair. Why aren't we learning that they conspired? Why aren't we hearing her? One of them was sitting in the car almost next to her when she said, how can I be so stupid? Meaning, how can I be so stupid to be with this guy who's telling me what to do and who to touch and who to kiss and who to have three-ways with, whatever. It's a little late to leave him, isn't it? Tell everyone I had an affair with this guy. This is the guy. And in some sick, perverted way, yes, she loved him. So stupid and love are not mutually exclusive. And you can read a lot of books and see a lot of movies and know a lot of people who do stupid things for love. That is hardly unusual in the world of men and women and the human species, shall we say. People love for all the right reasons and it's beautiful, and they love for all the wrong reasons and it's horrible. And when they kill so they can be with the one they love, like Mr. Baker did, it is worse than anything else you can do unless you're killing two people. And that's about what they're trying to do. Kill Baker's life and Austin's with the deal and get her. Again, I don't question their sincerity, although I question a lot of what we're going to go into because I think they misrepresented the evidence to you, but I sure as hell question their judgment. So Mr. Baker testifies, and he gives us this letter. Now, it didn't hit us immediately. We're a little dense, me and Mr. Dawson. But it sure got the attention of our co-counsel, who are a little younger, a little smarter. Why would you write a letter trying to minimize what you did, trying to make it look like an accident, or at the very least self-defense, making it look like I didn't go to kill him at all? I went to drop off a note and he happened to be home, and you can read the letter. It's full of lies. And he certainly doesn't name Mr. Austin, we know that. But why, in God's name, would you write a letter apologizing for how you killed him and saying, I didn't mean it, and it wasn't intentional, and it was an accident, to somebody who did it with you, who knew all about it, who conspired with you to kill him? The letter says, it happened because I was delivering you a card, and things went astray. Things went astray, and it was my fault, but it wasn't intentional. Well, the conspiracy was intentional, we know that. He was stabbed in the heart and the leg and the neck. There was nothing accidental about it. But he wants her to believe it was accidental, and he sends it to the very person that they say wanted it done to begin with. It doesn't make any sense. And when did he write it? He wrote it, 4 years later? 5 years later? 2017 to 2023? 6 years later? Couldn't write it before because he was fighting the case with her. And had convinced her, we got to fight this together or we are dead together. But once he realized he could not win the case, maybe because he thought he didn't have a good attorney, the attorney never went to him, whatever, but the real reason, let's be honest, he pled guilty, he accepted the charge, is because he did it. And his DNA was all over the house, the sink, the bedroom, the Porsche, the brakes, the garage, the cell box. So he pleads and he writes this letter. And you have to ask yourself, why? Can't fool her if she's in on it. But if she was not part of the conspiracy, that letter makes a little sense. A lot of sense. Especially if he loves her in his sick, perverted way. And he kept professing that he did. And I only assume that if he was willing to brutally kill somebody in cold blood, that could have been the reason. And we know from life's experiences and, yes, the TV shows and all the rest, that killing someone so you can be with your lover is not exactly unusual, unfortunately, or rare. And it happened here. Okay. There's one more thing that also kind of goes under the topic of little things mean a lot, although it's not so little. With all the things that were being deleted to cover up the affair, and we deleted this and they deleted that, and the day of the murder they deleted this. Turned out they deleted everything, and she wanted everything deleted because she didn't want the affair to come out, whether it was the photographs or the statements or anything, and with good reason. You saw what she was made to look like on the witness stand with that. But this is a text that is recovered by the prosecution experts. They were required under law, and they did, to turn over to us everything that they did in their investigation that was relevant to the issue of guilt or innocence. And one of the things we found that had not been deleted was a text from Mr. Baker to Ms. Sementilli under the timestamp 1/24/2/17/2:05/12. I assume it's 2 in the morning, right? 2 in the afternoon. I had a 50-50 chance and screwed it up. 2 in the afternoon, incoming call. And what does it say? I'm so sorry. Now, sorry for what? For what? If he conspired to kill her with her, he ain't going to be so sorry. It should say something like, we did it. I got it. I got it done. We're together. Whatever. Something sick like that, but something that at least would be consistent with someone who's just committed a murder for his lover to get rid of the one person standing in the way of he and his lover going to Italy or Las Vegas or God knows one of the stories he told, but never in front of her. Why say I'm sorry unless she is not and was not involved in the conspiracy to commit murder? And as far as he knows, no matter what he may think about the state of their marriage, or how unhappy she may be, or why she's with him, which is a pretty good indication that she wants him more than Fabio, or at least she's sharing him, which is what, as we said, she could have continued to do for years and years if she wanted to, or she could have left him and gone back to Fabio. There was no reason to kill him. I'm so sorry. That is something you say to someone who's lost a loved one and you want them to know that you're sorry about it. And after all, Mr. Baker is her lover. They have had an affair from January 2016, and now we're in January 2017. But he doesn't want her to know that he killed Fabio. He wants her to believe, as she did, and they all did, what the police told them. This was a no-knock burglary, robbery that went astray. And they lied to her and her family and her friends and everyone for all those months. And Baker says, I'm so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you combine I'm so sorry the next day with I apologize for how I did it, which is after he obviously has admitted he was the killer, then I submit to you on that evidence alone, you could and you should find that there is a reasonable doubt of the guilt of Miss Sementilli. You really think he's smart enough to think, I'm going to send a text the next day that says I'm so sorry, so eventually, if we're caught, I can have Mr. Levine put it up on the board, and that's going to be a good point. Not for me, but they're going to falsely accuse Monica, and that's going to help her. He knows that the day after the murder. The only thing he knows the day after the murder is that he and Austin killed Fabio Sementilli. They stabbed him to death. And the only other thing he knows the day after the murder is that she was not involved. And he did exactly what any of us might have done in a similar situation, though I doubt we would be in an affair with someone like Robert Baker. But we would say, I'm so sorry. Isn't that what the people who came to the wake said? The first of numerous misstatements, and that's being generous, by the prosecution, that why would Monica invite her gym rats to this wake, or whatever you want to call it, celebration of his life, mourning of his life, of his death, a day or two after. Why would she do that if she wasn't involved with Baker? Well, she didn't do that, remember? It was a testimony of one of the gym rats, people from LA Fitness, who told you on the stand, and wasn't a favorable witness for Monica, because they were saying, oh yeah, you know, they wanted to be together, and that's what Baker was saying. Of course, they said all that after the arrest, never before. Why don't we go and pay our condolences to Monica and her family? That's the evidence. She didn't invite him. Yeah, that would have been a little suspicious. You know, what's suspicious is that he came. Or she didn't look at him and pull him aside and say, get the hell out of here. What are you doing here? We just killed him and you're showing up? No, she sat with him and she talked with him. And she was criticized for having him come out to the patio where Fabio was killed, where everybody came out. Why wouldn't she take him out there? She didn't conspire to kill her husband. All she knows is that he's still her lover. And at that point, she doesn't have much else. She's not going to run around and telling her family and Fabio's family, oh, I had nothing to do with the murder, but by the way, me and Mr. Baker have been having an affair for a year. So they kept it secret, as you would expect. And the other thing I think I said to you yesterday, and I'll just repeat it for the last time, if they were so smart, well, first of all, Ms. Silverman characterizes Baker as dumb. And she may be right. But again, he was smart enough, she says, to write, I'm so sorry, even though Monica knows he did it, and he was smart enough to send a letter apologizing for how he killed Fabio and making it look like an accident to the very person who wanted him to kill Fabio. You got to be pretty smart to do that, or you got to be telling the truth, which he was. We could put the next slide up there. I spoke to you a lot about Christopher Austin yesterday, and I submitted to you he lied through his teeth to get the deal. And the judge will tell you these are some of the factors you can consider when you try to determine if a witness is telling the truth or not. The ability of the witness to remember, character and quality, the demeanor, existence or non-existence. So let's put that back. The existence or non-existence of a bias, interest, or other motive. The attitude of the witness towards the action or giving the testimony. Now, you know, that doesn't just apply. I was just thinking to Mr. Austin. That applies to all the witnesses who took the stand in this case. And we'll get to them in a second. Because, as I told you, by the time they were interviewed, by the time the police got around to interviewing them, they had already been told Monica killed Fabio with Baker. And if you don't think that was some kind of bias against her, then you didn't listen to this evidence here. As I told you before, had they interviewed these people before the arrest, and it was 4 months, more important, had any of those people come forward, Luigi, Marco, Meyer, Everbacher, Truesdale, anybody from Wella, had any of those people come forward, there they are, several of them, had any of them come forward before the arrest of Monica and Baker, 4 months, and said, you know what, I think you ought to take a look at Monica. She's acting a little strange. She's harassing us about the insurance. She's bugging us about going on trips. She wants this, she wants that. Why don't you consider that maybe she knows more than she's saying? None of them said that until the arrest. Then they were told, we've got it, we've solved it. Not really. 8 more years to solve it. We solved it. She did it. She killed her husband with Baker. And now we'd like to talk to you about what you know about the case. And suddenly you heard the animosity and the hatred that came out, some subtly from Wella, because they're not family, but they considered Fabio family, and some from Fabio's family, who now understood, because the police never get it wrong, right? Never get it wrong. That when they didn't say, we've made an arrest, there's going to be a prosecution and the truth will come out, hopefully. They said, we've made an arrest and we found her. We found what happened. She killed him with Baker. There's no question in our mind. On what? On all those phone calls that they were making months before? On the fact that she took 11 minutes to get from Target to her house? I'll explain to you what that means. So they didn't just say they arrested her, they said she was guilty. And that is not their job. It is their job. They were as obsessed with getting her as the police were, but at least they prosecuted her in an open court where jurors get a chance to hear all the evidence, all of it. They didn't convict her in the court of public opinion, which is what happens when the police announce, we've caught the murderers. Every one of those witnesses who testified had some bias against Monica and started to look at her a different way. And you know that because a loving family, and it was, who had come down for those 4 months to help in any way they could, all of them, Morella, Marco, Luigi, all of them, helping with the funeral, planning it, all of them, doing everything they could for a grieving wife of their beloved sister, brother, or father, or uncle, or whatever. Suddenly, Jessica and Bella were non compos mentis. They were out of the picture. They were no longer part of this close-knit family. They weren't being invited again to family get-togethers in Canada, and they weren't flying down to take care of the family anymore. And you know what? I don't think it's right, but I don't blame them. They were told that their mother killed Fabio. All of that as a result of the arrest. None of it was their opinion. Oh, they were buying cars, and you know, she spent too much. My God, they bought a car, a Mustang, on credit? Had to sell the truck because they wouldn't keep the lease going, it wasn't in their name? Sold the Porsche, maybe, because did you really want, even though it was his favorite car, driving around in the Porsche where he was murdered, or at least the blood of his murderers was all over the car? Are these indications of guilt? Why do you think they put on the Ford salesman and the Fiat salesman and the car salesman and the lease salesman, and they must have put on 10 witnesses? But one of the girls, Bella, I think, had an accident and they had to get a new car. Insurance paid for it. Even that was brought out. Fabio made sure they each had their own car. He had two he drove, the Porsche and the truck. So what? He worked hard. He deserved it. He gave to his kids. That's what a father does. Trust me. Everything was turned upside down. As Luigi said, the clouds became clear. Back to the witness. And I again ask you to look at this involving Mr. Austin. An admission by the witness of untruthfulness. Well, we know he lied throughout his original statements. Said he knew her, didn't know her, said nothing about Monica having anything to do with it, said nothing about the attempted murder the night before, lied about everything. The witness's prior conviction of a felony, well, they can use that against Mr. Baker as if they needed it to show that he was untrustworthy. And again, we're not saying the letter and the I'm sorry is evidence of his honesty. We're saying there's no way you write that letter if you're writing it to the person who conspired with you to kill the very person you're saying I'm sorry about and apologizing for the manner in which you did it. But the last one, of course, really applies, whether the witness is testifying under a grant of immunity or leniency. Now, why is that up there? Why will the judge read you that? Because that is the law. And as I've tried to point out throughout this case, and especially your oath to presume innocence and not convict unless it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt, that's one of the instructions also. So you can consider the fact that Mr. Austin got leniency. And boy, did he get leniency. Now, the other thing I told you that even the manner in which he was questioned by the prosecution was hardly designed to get the truth. Now, they'll say it was, and the judge is going to decide if he told the truth. The judge wasn't there for the proffer. The judge wasn't there deciding if he gets the deal. Now, if you wanted the judge to decide if he was telling the truth, get the judge there to listen. Then I bet you wouldn't have heard stuff like this from Miss Silverman. Approximately how many three-way calls between you, Baker, and Al do you think you had? Answer, I don't want to lie to you, Beth. Oh, that's a good start. Question. Now, the question should have been, so tell me how many, right? That's the open-ended question. This is the leading question. More than one? Answer, more than one. Question. Should have been, how many more? No. More than two? Answer. About three, maybe. Okay. Could it be more than three? She's thinking it's going to take more than 3 calls to plot a murder that you're supposed to be plotting from July at a hotel you were supposed to be at that you were never at. And plotting it in January and December. 3? With Birdsong and Austin? Not enough. Could it have been more than 3? Not how many. Possibly. Could it have been as many as half a dozen or more? Why is she telling him how many? That what Birdsong said? Certainly wasn't what the record showed. Could have been as many as half a dozen or more? Possibly, yes. All right? You're going to see. He loves the word possibly. I believe, I understood, I assumed. From someone who's being given half his life back, the answer should be a little more clear than that. He should have a pretty good idea, because you don't kill somebody every day, how many times you conspired with the other parties to do it. More than half a dozen or more? Possibly, yes. And did any of the three-way calls between you, Baker, and Al relate specifically to this job of getting rid of Monica's husband? Couldn't even call him Fabio because he didn't even know what the hell Fabio's name was. Now, there's the question, right? Not how many calls you had, but did any of them have to do specifically to the job of getting rid of Monica's husband, killing him? That's what they want to know. Now, the question should have been, what were the calls about? Let him tell you. Don't tell him what they were about and get him to say yes. But you know what? No audible response. You play that tape. It's a pretty simple question. Did any of the calls have to do specifically to this job of getting rid of Monica's husband? He couldn't even say yes. And you know what? That wasn't good. Not for Mr. Aval, who worked real hard to get him this deal, and not for Mr. Austin, who has to give truthful and valuable testimony. So what happens? We can leave the room too if you want. May I just have one moment? Mr. Aval says. Miss Silverman? Yep. And we're going to move you guys to another room, so that's nothing's being recorded in your conversation. That's important. This is attorney-client. God forbid they should agree to have it recorded. They could do. What's he going to tell them? To lie? We're going to have you guys move to the other room. Nothing's recorded. It's confidential. It's 11:54. Mr. Austin and his lawyer are leaving the room. Well, they're only gone 3 minutes. Doesn't take long to say, you idiot. You want your deal? You better tell him it had to do with Monica. Get the hell out there. And that's me writing the script. But it was something like that. They get back on the record. It's 11:57, Ms. Silverman says. We're back on the record. And the question that is asked is not, well, what is your answer now that you've spoken to your lawyer and he's told you what to say? The question is, I just had a brief conversation with your lawyer, says Ms. Silverman. I know that the position that you're in here really isn't good, right? Understatement. No audible response. Question. Like, we understand how difficult it is to be in your position. However, you know why you're here. Yes, ma'am. Doesn't take much to figure out why he's there and how difficult it is, really. Is it difficult to tell the truth and get a reduced sentence? It's difficult to tell the truth and make it valuable. Question. You have said on multiple occasions from what I've read that you're ashamed of what happened and your participation in it. And I understand that. And like I said, that you're in a very difficult position. But how forthcoming you are is appreciated. We appreciate that. And will be something that obviously is going to be taken into account with respect to any potential disposition that we offer you through your counsel. It's a very legalistic way of saying it's time for you to put up or shut up. And now Mr. Aval comes through and says, and I have advised him that it is in his best interest to be as forthcoming and as truthful as possible and to answer all of your questions to the best of his ability. Miss Silverman, thank you, Mr. Aval. Well, why did he have to be told by his attorney, you know, it's in the best interest for you to tell the truth? I thought that's what he swore to tell the truth to begin with. I thought that's why he was coming down there. Wasn't he? To tell the truth? Hadn't they already gone through that? Took an oath? That's gibberish. That means I think it's in your best interest to tell them what they want. You told them, and I told them you could do, or we wouldn't have had this damn proffer. What, we're going to have a proffer, and the guy's going to say, I don't remember how many calls I had, and I don't remember if it had to do with Monica's murder? It's the only thing he didn't say in Vancouver till he got his lawyer. Miss Silverman, thank you, Mr. Aval, for reminding your client to be forthcoming and truthful, which they wouldn't have needed the private conference if he had been doing that. Now, Ms. Silverman goes on, and I think we all believe, you're doing exactly that. Really? At that point where she says, well, the three-way calls have to do with the killing of Monica's husband, and he says, doesn't answer, and he has to have a meeting, and what does the prosecution say? We all believe you're doing exactly that. If it gets to a point, however, where I don't, I have a lot of work, and I bet she does. We all do, especially when you're trying cases like this. I have a lot of work. We all do. And you know, I've walked out of proffer sessions on many occasions. But I'm so appreciative of the way that you are handling yourself and trying to remember. So, and he says, I'm trying to remember, so forgive me. And she says, oh, there's no need to forgive. There's no apology needed. I just wanted to put that on the record. I also want to put on the record, by the way, that since we're getting into this, if any other individuals besides Monica and Baker are offered dispositions, assuming one is offered, it will be continued upon you. In other words, if we offer you a disposition, you not only got to testify against Monica, you got to testify against anyone else involved in the conspiracy. You understand? Yes, ma'am. There may be follow-ups to the interview. You know, we may come back to you on another day. If we get to the point where you're exhausted, we'll pick another day. I hope not, because I'd like to get as much done. And it's for you to have to be worrying about it overnight. And we don't want to have to transport you back and forth. And he says, I have to suffer, so it's okay. I have to suffer. Really? Suffer? This is suffering? No, suffering is what he did to Fabio Sementilli. So then they go on. None of that was necessary to a simple question of how many three-way calls did you have? One, maybe two, maybe three, yeah, I mean 4, yeah, possibly, yeah. And the calls had to do, right, with killing Monica's husband, right? And then you heard it. Now, don't get me wrong, from that point on, there are 20 more lies he tells about the knife, about the gold coins, about everything. Because it is all a lie to get his deal. And if you have any doubt about that, please have the reporter play back to you, and you will have the transcript if you want it to help guide you in listening to it, to that proffer session. Because based on that proffer session, Mr. Austin was given his deal of the century. And all he had to do was get up on that stand and say, Monica knew. All he had to do. The rest was just frosting on the cake. How he got the coins, when he got the coins, we'll get to that if I think it's necessary. When he got there, when he left, what happened there, who got the wires, who went through the house, who was in the trunk, who wasn't in the trunk, who did the stabbing. See, that he should have no problem with. Because that's the truth. He killed, with Robert Baker, Fabio Sementilli. That's what it says. No man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. Well, he didn't have a good enough memory to be a liar about her, but he damn well had a good enough memory to remember that he killed him. And I'm going to cite to you, before we end here, exactly what he says about that. Because I am still, not that my opinion means a damn thing, it's the evidence, still not pleased with him getting this deal, because I think the evidence showed he lied. It's the only reason she's being prosecuted, his lie. Throw it out. Yeah, throw it out and see what other evidence is. And I'm also not comfortable with how he was treated on the witness stand compared to Mr. Baker. Whatever you can say about Mr. Baker, he had a reason. I'm not going to call it a motive, a reason. He wanted her for himself. Not a good reason is never a good reason for murder unless you're acting in self-defense or fighting a war. But at least he had a reason. He knew after that Christmas this wasn't going to go on forever. And he didn't like the way it was going on. She could have just carried it out all the way. She was never going to marry him or bring him home, or even after the murder, when she had no idea he was involved, that she'd go home and for Passover and say, "Hey, look what I brought to the Seder." Well, you're not Jewish, so it's the Last Supper, I think, in Christianity. Whatever it was, she wasn't liable to do that. She wasn't. I don't think she's bringing Baker home and saying, "Wow, look who Fabio was tragically killed. Look who I'm with. My new mate." So she continued to keep it secret, and I submit to you, I hope, we'll never know, that eventually she would have realized he was nothing more than a whoremonger, a slut maker, a woman controller, a child molester, and eventually a killer. But the point is, he had a reason and a goal to get rid of Fabio so he had a chance to keep Monica. What was Mr. Austin's reason? What was his goal? The nerve of him to say, because he asked me to. He asked me to. Then to lie through his teeth. Remember what he said originally? It's all in the record. It's all in the cross-examination of Mr. Austin that I went through with him. Wasn't that difficult? There was a transcript of the Perkins interview and the October 2nd interview when Ms. Stagel went up there. It was all there. Tell me what you need, I'll give it to you. Tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. It's all there. What was his reason for doing it? Money? You'll see that he is all over the place with money. There is no reason other than Mr. Baker said, "I need your help." This guy with a wife and kid who works in a parole office is going to go down and twice try to kill someone, and the second time do it. For what? Because he asked me to, and he told me he would take care of me. I trusted him. You know what he meant by take care of me? He meant don't snitch me out. And you know what? Baker kept his word on that. It wasn't Baker that got Mr. Austin arrested and convicted for a lesser crime. It was Mr. Austin himself. Then Baker said, yeah, it was him. So he's being told down there, you better get her. She's the only one left. You listen to it all. It's not even close. You got to change your story. She's the bitch who's getting out of it. For some reason, he thinks she's getting out of it. He says nothing about, oh, I know what I was thinking of. And when he's talking to the Perkins person, and I believe even the detectives who went up there, the two gentlemen behind me and Miss Daigle, yeah, they even questioned him about it. You know what? Yeah, okay, there's some of the things Mr. Babbage is putting up there. You want to put up some of the other ones? If they can get that man and they want the big fish, if they can get that motherfucker, they ain't giving a fuck about you. I mean, Jesus, go on. Of course, you're going to have to switch your story up a little bit. This is a police officer telling a potential witness, you're going to have to switch your story up. Because what you told me when you believed I was just another suspect like you in trouble, what you told me was you didn't know shit about her. You didn't even know her name. All right, go on. You know the situation. You got to save yourself, man. That bitch is trying to get out. I guess he means that bitch is trying to get out of the prosecution. Of course, this is a police officer saying this, not a jury. At this time, I'm just being honest. Fuck that. Fuck her life. It's her life or your life. Austin, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking for some type of deal to go home to my girls. That's to Miss Daigle. She says, right, I understand. Okay. And then what Austin says after that to Miss Daigle? What do you need from me just so I can go home to go see my girls? Now, to her credit, Miss Daigle doesn't say, yeah, we want you to come up here and lie, say something that's not true. But he refuses to go on with any more conversations about what he knows or doesn't know about the only thing they care about, because they already have Baker pled and sentenced. They already have Austin admitting that he killed him. That's in the rest of the proffer. And the only thing they don't have is her. I keep saying that, I know, but that is why you are here. That is why she is here. So Austin gives them what they want so he can go home and see his girls. Is anything more obvious than that? Now at that point, when he said, tell me what you need, I'll tell you whatever you want, and they know the Perkins tape because Perkins is one of them, I submit to you, if I'm the DA's office, I say, we can't trust this guy. Unless we can corroborate what he's saying, in other words, if there's other evidence that corroborates what he's saying, like an overheard phone call, or records of a three-way call, or maybe someone else who heard him talking to Monica, or maybe proof that Monica met him at the Aria Hotel, where they tried for 2 months and 12 witnesses, and God knows how many undercover officers to prove they met at the Aria, and they couldn't even prove that. And eventually he says, no, I met her at the LA Fitness. If I'm the prosecutor, I say, I don't think we can trust this guy to tell the truth. Especially after the proffer, which means his attorney obviously goes in and tells the DA, this is what I think my client can do for you. It's valuable. And then they decide even to give him the proffer. I might have concluded, if I was the DA, I don't think we can trust this guy as far as we can throw him. Well, I was wrong. The next thing we know, they're going on with the proffer. And I read you about, can we have a minute? We come back and then he knows what to say. This is what he says for the mainly about Monica's involvement. I believe, I assume, this also should be up there. I understand, it's my assumption, not once did Austin firsthand overhear any conversation between Monica and Baker, nor did he ever see one text message between the two of them. Austin never had any text or phone calls with Monica. After extensive analysis by data experts, there's no evidence of any link between the devices of Monica and Austin, three ways or others. Now, why is that important? First of all, it means that all Austin is going to be able to tell you is simply, Baker told me that Monica wanted him dead. Baker asked me if I would kill him. Baker told me that Monica said she's sending him to the foe. Baker told me that Monica said he's going to be home. Baker told me blah, blah, blah. So all he has to add to what Baker was honestly involved with is, Monica told me that. Monica told me that. That's all he adds. And he isn't even up there if he doesn't get his deal. Were you aware that Monica and Al were tight, or that they were in communication? I assumed that they were, because of how much whatever. You mean the 22nd? That's the night before, as I recall. I believed he texted her and said it didn't work. And we went back to his pad and just crashed. Leave that up a second. This is what Austin testified to. If you remember, he backed away from killing Fabio, which should have led to him flying home and Fabio would be alive and we wouldn't be here. But of course, they go back to the house and he's apologizing for not doing it. And according to him, Baker has to tell Monica it didn't work. So he says, I believe he texted her and said it didn't work. That is all he says. Not that I heard him, not that I was there, not that I watched the text, not that I listened to the phone call. I believe he texted her. Well, do you know, did you see or hear, did he tell you how he communicated with Monica after that? That would have been important. Yeah, he texted. He started texting, and I assumed it was Monica. Why did you assume that? Because he didn't really move until he got a text of some type of call from her. Well, you're on a three-way. I'd expect while you're on the three-way. Oh, never mind. Oh, that means I got to figure out where I was standing. And any of those phone contacts you're having with them, are they all from your actual phone? I think so. Then we get on. These are all different clips. It was my understanding, or different subjects, that when I flew down, Mr. Fabio was never supposed to be killed in his home. But I believe that when, I just couldn't do it. I believe that Monica wanted it done, so I think that's why she told Baker he would be at home alone. I believe. Is there ever, I know, I heard it, I listened? Gee, if I was Mr. Austin and Mr. Baker was saying, Monica wants him dead, I would have said, if you want me to help kill this guy, because I think you want him dead, but I'm not going to help you unless she wants him dead. All he had to do was give him the phone and say, here, Monica, tell him. Hi, I want him dead. Didn't happen. Couldn't happen. She didn't want him dead. So all of this knowledge, as couched as it is, and I believe, I understand, I assume that Baker talked to Monica and that Monica told him she wanted him dead and that Monica wanted it done. That's why she told Baker that he would be at home alone. And how does he know that? Because he says that's what Baker told me. Well, it's missing something. I have no doubt at some point Baker told him Monica said he was home that day, but not to kill him. He wanted to know where Fabio was every day, and he did. He stopped. He even ended up at the same restaurant as the girls were. Suddenly they get a flat tire, and who's driving behind him to fix it up? Robert Baker. What a sicko. Who knows what would happen with the girls if this had carried on. They were 16 and 18. My God, they were senior citizens for Baker compared to the 14-year-old. I don't think age was any issue for him. But let's let this guy stay on the streets for 4 months while we decide if we can actually get evidence against Monica, because she's the one we want. Let's go on. Turn that off for a sec, if we can. I'll go back to the last one. So, you'll see a jury instruction, and we'll get to that, where it talks about you cannot find that someone's an accomplice to a murder or any crime unless there's some independent evidence corroborating what the accomplice is supposed to be saying. So if the accomplice says to you that there it is, to corroborate the testimony of an accomplice in this case is Mr. Austin. Baker's the murderer, Austin's the accomplice. That means he aided him, knowing what he was going to do. There must be evidence of some act or fact related to the crime which, if believed by you, by itself and without any aid, interpretation, or direction from the testimony of the accomplice, Mr. Austin, tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime charged. However, it's not necessary that the corroboration be sufficient in itself to establish every element or to corroborate every fact. All right, I was going to say let me put it into English for you, but there's the English. You're bright people. You can understand what's going to happen, what it's going to say. In determining whether an accomplice has been corroborated, you must assume the testimony of the accomplice has been removed from the case. You must determine whether there is any remaining evidence which tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime. If there's no independent evidence which tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime, the testimony of the accomplice is not corroborated. If there's independent evidence which you believe, then the testimony of the accomplice is corroborated. Okay, let's discuss that.
What do you do? Let's take our morning recess.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're winding down, as I'm sure you're happy to hear. As you may tell, I like the closing argument to include two things. Number one, the facts. Obviously, we're not arguing the facts to you. You have a right to say, well, the guy's full of you-know-what. That's not what happened. That's not what's testified to. All we have is our credibility. If we mistake the facts, that's a problem. But the other thing is, assuming the facts are there, you want to know how I feel the facts apply to the law in your decision. And again, all I have is my credibility. I tell you something, well, this means this and this means this, and it's way out of line, then you have a right to go back there and say, yeah, I think Mr. Levine just, I know it's his job to represent his client, but that didn't happen, and that, everything I am telling you, because I believe it's what the evidence shows, and why I believe that your verdict should be not guilty in this case. Not guilty. not proven. So let's go on with that. One thing that I wanted to say before we go back to the slides, like I said, I always wondered, they had these 60 hours of plus recordings of Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli in the jail cells, when either they knew they were being recorded or didn't know or whatever. Now they ended in June of 2018. 1 year is when she broke it off. There were no more three-way calls, no more kites, no more meetings, no more talking, no more nothing. She had it with him. Wish it had taken less than a year, but it took a year to realize that this guy was full of shit. And he was tying her to his defense, wanting her to give him information that he couldn't get from his attorney, and then saying, this is what we got to do about this, this is what we got to do about this, and weaving facts that did occur into a defense for Mr. Baker. And one of the things, I don't know if it would be up there or not, that is clear is when he said, if I have to, I'll get up there and lie. And what he said right after that was, lie that I did it, or that I didn't do it. I have to get up there and lie. I'll lie that I did it, even though I didn't. So it wasn't like he was lying for her. He was lying to get up there to say that he did it, and she didn't. The other thing that always bothered me and still does is they were talking in the car. Do you remember? Somebody told. Remember that? Why didn't she say, oh my God, Austin told. Oh my God, they must have caught Austin and he told on us. Why aren't any of those conversations about Austin? Hey, do you think they'll get Austin? Have you talked to Austin? What happened to Austin? She didn't know anything about Austin, this so-called conspiracy where she's telling Baker that she wants this done and Baker's then relaying it to Austin. We already went through that. There's no corroboration. There's no evidence of her involvement with Austin other than Austin saying it. And you don't even hear Austin saying it to her. But why in 60 hours, if she conspired to kill her husband, they say, with Christopher Austin, do you not hear her say his name once? Because she was not involved. And how the hell would she know that Austin was involved if she wasn't involved until he was arrested 8 years later? You think about that, if you would. All right, let's go on with the slides. He said we talk about the faux restaurant. Fabio picked a faux restaurant, initiated the first text to Monica, and they claimed that Monica deleted the faux message from Fabio to hide this setup for him to be killed. That is just completely false. That message is not deleted in the records. Monica cleared all of her web history, like you do sometimes when you're searching for restaurants or whatever, you'll clear it. But they said that's not important. Yeah, she was sending him the phone that night. He wanted to make sure where it was. No one's doubting that. That occurred. The question is, was it a conspiracy between them to kill Fabio? So she clears her web history, not just selectively deleting special web history relating to Faux. We'll get to the proof of that. And they arrive, Monica and Fabio even begin communicating about Faux hours. That is, Baker and Austin arrive hours before Monica and Fabio allegedly even begin communicating about Faux. Now, they communicated about it, but not about having him killed, because if it was a conspiracy, all she has to do is call Baker and say, he's leaving the house now, get over there. Baker lives in the neighborhood, what is he, 5 minutes away? Call 5 minutes before he leaves. He's just going to the garage. Why would they be there hours before he even goes to pick up the food, which I think was at 6 or something? They got there at 3. Austin says it happened at 9. This is not complicated. This is Monica telling Baker, like she does every day, here's what we're doing tonight. We're going to have food out. Fabio's going to pick it up. There's conversations about pho, Google, whatever. And he does. And Baker gets there at 3 so he doesn't miss him. But she doesn't set it up for him to be killed. Because all she has to do, again, is at 5:36, when we know Fabio shows up, is send a message, Fabio's leaving the house. It can happen. Never happens. They're there for 3 hours waiting around. Let's go on. And here's where the exhibit shows. The prosecution told you, and you have a right to hold them to the standard that you'd hold any witness. They shouldn't be presenting you evidence that's not true. It shows the texts are not deleted. That X means that these texts were not deleted. You see, phone near me, Google search. That was supposed to have been a text that Monica deleted. These text messages, if you can see there in the web, it was not, well, the web history was deleted. I got a little backwards, I'm sorry. The web history was deleted, but none of the other texts were deleted. Go near me. She doesn't delete. Let's go to the next slide. She doesn't delete. They use it. First of all, she never deletes the messages involving pho. Let me get that straight. The messages that are supposed to be sent involving pho to Baker and so forth are never deleted. The only thing that's deleted is the web history. So let's get that straight. I think I mixed it up a little bit. They're trying to say because she knew he was going to be killed that night, that Monica deleted them intentionally. The prosecution says Monica deleted her text message on January 22nd, 2017 about pho. That just isn't true. The records show those messages were not deleted. They're trying to say that she specifically deleted the web history for specific crimes, specific entries on January 22nd, 2017. Again, that isn't true. She cleared all of the web history before June 2017, before even the murder took place, just the same as you would do when you cleared. And regardless of what Austin says about when he and Baker went to pho, the records show the prosecution's own expert, Cy Ray, tells us that they got there in the area of 3:30 in the afternoon. The phone is pinging in that area all that time, and his phone stays in that area till past 6 p.m. for over 2.5 hours. So why is Baker there for 2.5 hours if Monica's directing it? If Monica was actually directing the murder, she would have messaged Baker, I'm sending Fabio there. And that's why he gets there 2 hours before. Take a look at the records. The records show that those messages were not deleted. The messages that the prosecution says that were. You can see on the left side there's our X's, which mark where something has been deleted. See those X's? And it shows the web history deleted, which we talked about. All of her history, but look at the instant messages at the top there. See those in the square? I got it right. There's no X marked to those. If there's no X, then it shows those messages were not deleted. Completely and act the opposite of what the prosecution is telling you. Throughout this case, they're trying to tell you that Monica intentionally deleted messages that she knew would be incriminating. Those were not deleted. The reason they were not deleted is because in her mind they were not incriminating. They were just indicating messages involving Fabio going to the foe to pick up the food. If it was to go to kill him, they would have been deleted. The prosecution told you they were deleted, but the expert said they were not deleted. Let's go on. What else did the prosecution do that we believe can be shown to have been inaccurate? They used an inaccurate record to try to prove that Monica used this lifestyle lounge application to send Baker the faux location where Fabio was going to be. Remember that? The so-called faux location was sent to show where Fabio was going to be. So we called the defense expert, Neil Broom, who testified that that record was completely wrong. Completely wrong. That lifestyle lounge, which they made a big deal about, which is kind of a swinging lounge, was used to communicate that location to Fabio, where Fabio was going to be, and send that to Baker, and that's completely false. And the important thing is the last entry there. The prosecution could have put back on a prosecution data expert to say that the record was accurate, but they didn't, because it was not. So you have incorrect versus correct, and I don't expect you to weed through all that, except to know that the prosecution had presented you a fact that they thought was incriminating to Monica, and it was not. All right, let's move on. Now we get to January 23rd, the date of the murder. The date when they claimed there was this small window, remember, that they had to fit in this murder to make it successful and so that it wouldn't be discovered before it had concluded. A small window. It didn't have to be a small window. As you'll see, Monica controlled all the time when people arrived and left, except Fabio, and Fabio was home. Everybody knew that, and we knew that from the testimony of everyone, from Fabio's own testimony through the messages. Now, I still don't have the answer for the colonoscopy, neither do the people. Why he made that up, and he made up that it went well and so forth. But all that's relevant about that are the times when the calls are made by Wella to him. So let's start out with January 23rd. And what we are saying is throughout these timeline, right from the beginning to the end, that it shows Monica did not assist the murder. Monica, let's go. Monica's let's go back to the previous one. Go to the top. Monica sends a Viber message to Baker on 3:36, and that's when Baker leaves the Target parking lot. There's no messaging between Baker and Monica at all between that time and the time Fabio searches on the internet on his phone on 4:35, when they are already there at the house, at the location. And the next message is not till 4:46, which is after the murder has taken place. And Fabio is driving away, the Porsche is driving away from the home, and Bella comes back. So look, there's no messaging between 3:36 and 4:46. There's no messaging between Monica and Baker for this whole 1 hour. No way she could have assisted during this key time when the significant events are occurring. And what do I mean by that? Why not communicate to him that Jessica has left? Yes, she texts Jessica, don't be late for your babysitting. But how does she know Jessica has left the house and is gone? She's supposed to be viewing everything and telling everybody. She never calls Jessica at the babysitter and say, have you gotten there? At 3:40, this is all from the prosecution's evidence, Monica texts Jessica, "Don't be late for babysitting." 6:41, Jessica replies, "I won't." 3:41. 3:47, Jessica leaves the house. Now that's when Monica should have sent a Viber message or any message to Baker saying, "Jessica left the house. Fabio's home alone. You know Monica's not there, and you know Bella has gone for her interview after school." No assist when we're told Monica has total control, can view the whole scene, is communicating with Baker. It's a small window. What is she doing to enable this to occur and occur successfully, this so-called co-conspirator? The IDMS, viewing home surveillance camera. 4 o'clock is the only time from the data records that Monica could have been watching the home during using that app. That's it. 4 o'clock. Nothing is happening at that time that has to be relayed to Baker. No messages at all from Monica to Baker anywhere near this time to say again that Jessica is left and the coast is clear. How would she know that? She'd see Jessica's car's not there, right? Okay. You cannot even view the cameras and communicate on the messaging app at the same time. In other words, they want you to believe she's, looking at the app and she's walking out the door, she's messaging and she misses her. You can't do both. Either you're communicating or you're watching. You can't do both at the same time. And there's no evidence Baker ever downloaded or used that app on any of his devices. Let's get to the more crucial and interesting times. 4:18. Baker and Austin arrived at the Sementilli house. Now, Bella was gone, we know. Look at the previous app, the previous slide if we can, Jeremy. Bella was gone at school. Monica wasn't there. Jessica leaves at 3:47. Okay, go back to the next one. 4:18 is what, 20 minutes later? They arrive at the house. Why? Fabio's home alone. Monica's telling him everything. She's in on it. She's seeing everything. She knows everything. Why does it take them a half hour when they have this small window of time, which turns out to be 1 minute? No messaging between Monica and Baker to say the coast is clear. So Baker and Austin arrive at the house 33 minutes after Jessica leaves. Baker is coming from a Target parking lot that is less than 10 minutes away, and we're told that Austin's in the trunk, right? Or the back or somewhere. Someone said that. I think it was Mr. Christopher Austin. Even if he has to go back and pick him up, Baker lives 5 minutes away. Why does it take, when they know the house is vacant, except for Fabio, all of that time, 33 minutes before they arrive, from where we know Baker was in Target, and then what time? If Monica was orchestrating, and you can read as well as I, and letting him know everyone's movements, why would he wait so long to get to the house and narrow this small window to carry out the murder? Next. Thank you, Mr. Babbage. It means that when Baker and Austin arrive at the house, it takes them over 20 minutes to get into the house and kill Fabio. For some reason, this slide looked the same. 4:18, Baker and Austin arrive at the house. Okay? Got that straight. 4:35, Fabio is searching on his internet, so he must still be alive. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. which means what are Baker and Austin doing between 4:18 and 4:35? This is a small window, remember. They've got to get it done. What are they doing? Are they ransacking the house? No. That's not what Austin says. He says the murder takes place, and then they ransack the house. And we know that's true because there's blood all over the house. Right? There's blood by the door, there's blood going up the stairs, there's blood in the bedroom. Nowhere near the safe. We'll get to that. So Fabio's home. They're at the house at 4:18. It takes them over 30 minutes to get into the house and kill Fabio. Now, it makes no sense for them to wait that long if this was all planned by Monica. And left the door open, and they were meant to be in and out 1, 2, 3. I'm telling you, the evidence is that front door was not open. Austin made that up, like he made up this thing about the passcode for the safe. If that door was open at 4:18, they go in the house, they go right through to the patio. Remember, Baker said he was trying to lure him out, whatever, that takes a little time. They go in, they kill him, they run through the house. How long does that take? 5, 10 minutes, they said. And they're out of there. They should have been out of there by 4:35. At 4:35, they're not even in there. Because Fabio is searching the internet on his phone, and we know that. Again, ask yourself and ask the prosecution to explain, what about this small window that they had to get this done in when they're in the house for, what, almost 20 minutes before Fabio is even killed? And we know it has to be after 4:35 because that's when he's on the internet. So it didn't happen just right after that. All right, let's go on. Bella arriving so soon to the killer's leaving. The Porsche drives away from the home at 4:53. Bella approaches the home, and you can see this on those video cameras, right? The ones down at the corner. And when you see all the pictures of the cars coming up from Oakdale to turn on Queen Victoria, we saw all that. You know why they saw that so easy? Let me get back to that. Who told them the very night that her lover is trying to escape with her co-conspirator, Mr. Austin, is Monica Sementilli telling the police who arrived, oh, there's a homeowners association, and I think the name, gives the name Leslie something. They live right down the street. Maybe they have a camera. And lo and behold, they had a camera. And that was the first camera that showed all the scenes the prosecution used and the police to show when the cars came up and when the cars left. And that's why Monica was upset that they were looking at it, because she's the one who found it. She wanted to see it too. She told them about it. She told them that night. What? To help catch the people and apprehend the ones that she was conspiring to kill? All right. That's how we know the Porsche is driving away from the home, Baker and Austin, at 4:53, and Bella is approaching the home at 4:54 and finds the body and goes absolutely crazy, as you would expect. 1 minute after they're seen leaving. And I don't have to read this to say it, but I will. It's inconceivable that if Monica was orchestrating this murder, she would allow her own daughter to potentially arrive home when the killers are still there and risk her being murdered. She had every opportunity to delay Bella because she was in communication with her all afternoon, including a call at 4:24 after she knows the killers arrive at the house. Now, why do we say she had every opportunity to do that? Let's go to the next slide. This is Bella. Testifying in this case about her eyeglasses. Remember? Question, you picked them up, then you drove home, and there was about a minute after the murderers left. Yes, isn't that right, left? Your mom didn't try to delay you going home at all, did she? No. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is going to show you the conversations between, we'll get to that, between Monica and Bella and the doctor. But let me ask you this, and this is what's bothered me for 8 years. Now the prosecution is going to tell you, because they have to, that Monica Sementilli did not care if her daughter Bella found her dead husband brutally stabbed to death. In fact, it's like she choreographed it to do so. That's how evil she is. That she would allow her own daughter to find the body when all she had to do when she spoke to her daughter, and we'll get to the messages that actually occurred, the phone calls, when she called up about her eyeglasses and said she was going to pick them up and she didn't know if her mother had to be there or not. And her mother said, no, I don't have to be there, just pick them up and go home. I'm making for Tina or something. All she had to do was say, wait for me at the eyeglasses. I've got to be there. I spoke to Dr. Cohen. Or after you pick up the eyeglasses, let's meet at Starbucks. Tell me how the interview went. Remember, she had the interview for a job. I'll see you at Starbucks. Or meet me at Ralph's, please, and you can help me go shopping, and we'll finish up for dinner tonight. There are 100 different things she could have said to keep Bella away from the house where she knew this murder was going on right at that time. And she did not. Her own daughter. And because there's no way to argue differently that Monica did not have that power and ability and control to do that, they're going to tell you that she didn't give a shit. That she hated her daughter so much, or didn't care so much, or hated Fabio so much, or hated both of them so much, that she not only wanted him brutally killed, but she wanted her daughter to find the body first. And what was her explanation? So Monica could have an alibi. What, they really were going to think when Monica arrived 5 minutes later that she killed Fabio with the knife? With 2 knives and all those wounds? Of course not. She didn't need an alibi. She wasn't the murderer. So why? Why does she let her daughter find the body in this tight, that's the small window they're talking about, which means they knew ahead of time there was a small window. How many times did they tell you in the trial, in the opening, in the closing, they had a small window, they had to get this done? Bullshit. There was no small window. You know why? Because Monica did not have to show up when she did, and Bella did not have to show up when she did. All Monica had to do, again, is, and Bella called her, another misrepresentation by Miss Silverman. Monica called Bella to tell her to go to the eye doctor and pick up her glasses to delay her long enough so she would get home 1 minute after the murder. What if the damn car wouldn't start? What if they couldn't open the garage? Bella called Monica, the record show, and wanted to know if Monica had to be at the doctor for Bella to pick up the glasses. all Monica had to do is say, I'll meet you at the doctor's, pick up the glasses, let's go to Starbucks, let's get a bite, whatever, and get back home maybe 15 minutes after Baker leaves, when Baker can tell her, I've left. Because the hole in their story is that Monica, the conspirator, wants her husband dead. And that's all she cares about. She doesn't care about Bella. But she certainly cares about Baker and supposedly Austin that she supposedly knows about. They're leaving the house and driving away in a Porsche that they know the color, they know the model, they know the license. What's the first thing the police are going to do? And I wish they'd done it sooner. Apparently they didn't. It's put out what they used to call an APB. Porsche, license plate, so-and-so, leaving the house, Victoria and Oakdale. Find it, search for it, look for it. Did they? I don't know. But that was what Monica had every right to believe they would have done. So she's giving them, in her plot, 1 minute to get away. Or, God forbid, her daughter walks in on the murder. And not only discovers it and calls 911, but likely is held or killed or whatever, because they can't have that happening. Monica totally controlled the time frames in this case. She had total control. And the problem is, the prosecution forgot that. They kept saying that Monica, I think it was Mitzi who said she took 5 different routes from Ralph's to the house. And the longest it took was 5 minutes. Remember that? So why did it take her 11 minutes to get from Ralph's? Because they saw when she left till she got home. Why? Well, we don't know. There was no camera on her. She could have been on the phone. She could have been smoking a cigarette. That's not the point. It should have taken her 30 minutes to get home with a good excuse. I went to see Bella. Bella gave her that excuse. She called her. She called her and Monica said, go pick up your glasses and go home. And that's only a few miles away. And it always bothered me that when Detective Roberts, I'm sorry I say Mitzi, known her a long time in this case, when Detective Roberts put up that whole elaborate exhibit demonstration, and it was well done with the cars moving and everything. They had her car, they had Baker's car, they had the Versa, they had everything on their times and everything. The one car they didn't put up there was Bella. They didn't even track where Bella was. They just said Monica knew that Bella would go to the eye doctor and it would take a few minutes to get home and she would get there a minute after, and that's plenty of time. It's a small window or whatever. Never realizing that Monica, conspirator Monica, murderer Monica, could have not only made sure Bella didn't discover the body, let both of them discover the body. Isn't that a little easier? That's a good alibi. At least you're with your daughter. And give your lover time to get the hell out of there. And all he did was drive around and find a place to park it, remember, and run back to get the Versa. My God. They're lucky they weren't caught right then and there if it was 1 minute. Why weren't they? She should have given him 30 minutes to do it. Nothing blocked that except for the fact that she was not in on it and she didn't know. Can we go to the frame that shows the calls that are made from If you'll excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. A slide. That's why I have an assistant. I want you to look at what is already in evidence from the prosecution. It's not going to be on a slide, but it's in evidence. And it will show you at the time that the call came in from Bella to her mother, 4:36, 47, somewhere around that time. And it shows a call also between Monica and Dr. Cohen. Okay? And then a call back to Bella. It shows what a three-way call looks like because the calls are overlapping. And remember when I told you that there's no record of three-way calls between Austin and Birdsong and Baker? Because you don't see the same thing that you're going to see on the exhibit that has those calls. Because those calls show exactly when Bella called, and it shows when Monica was speaking to the doctor about whether she had to be there for the pick up the glasses, and it shows Monica and Bella talking again. Right in the middle of the murder. There is no stronger evidence that you're going to see in this case that Monica controlled the time of everything. You're hearing Jessica had to be gone and Bella had to be gone and this and that. She had control. And you're being told that with all that control, her plan was for Bella to show up 1 minute after the murders occurred and gave Austin and Baker 1 minute to get out of the house and escape, when she could have done just the opposite. Just the opposite. You ask yourself that. You ask yourself why that occurred, and then I think you'll find by itself that not only destroys the claim that Monica was part of the conspiracy, it shows that it was just pure luck that her daughter wasn't killed at the time the murder took place, and that she had nothing to do with the time at all, except to let Baker know, as he knew every day, that Monica Sementilli was at Target or Ralph's and that Fabio was home alone and the girls were not there. And they could have met up, they talked later. Baker had enough on his mind, obviously. And look at the calls again and see the number of calls back and forth and see if there's any change on the 17th or the 22nd or whenever. They are messaging and texting each other every day like they did for a year. Now, let's get to the post-murder. The murder has taken place. Question about to Deborah Obad, because remember the motive is supposed to be life insurance. Question: had Monica ever at any point discussed with you life insurance for Luigi? No. Did she say anything else about university? She said, Luigi is going to be fine. Luigi is going to be fine. His dad takes care of him. He's going to be fine. That has been twisted and turned into Monica being obsessed with the insurance because she lets Luigi know that she knows about this separate policy. The prosecution also says that the daughters have been brainwashed and their heads are in the sand. The only people who are brainwashed are the prosecution witnesses who are now presuming Monica's guilt. So whose head is in the sand? Whose head is in the sand? Let's talk about the life insurance then for a minute. He had no knowledge prior to the death of Fabio that his company would create a new policy that would provide 6 months' worth of salary to the family. The calls about life insurance to law enforcement, 7 calls to Weller, were perfectly and completely normal. I'll get to the next one. We've gone over this. Listen to those calls and remember, they are combined with the issue of finding the killer. She is told it's not that easy to fill out the life insurance claim in any case when it's a murder. You've got to send it to Weller, you've got to send it to, they say send it to MetLife. MetLife says it's got to go to the police. Again, they want you to presume that she is guilty, and all these things then look guilty. Your job is to presume she is innocent, and everything she does is consistent with an innocent victim of a brutal murder of her husband. Calling the police and asking them, what progress have you made? What's going on? Have you found them? And all the police are saying is, oh, we're making progress. Don't worry. We've got someone. We've almost got someone. I think we got someone. Did you get a new DVR? But don't worry. The place is safe. No knock burglars don't come around anymore. They changed the locks. And they know that the DVR was purchased by Fabio, not by her. Okay. Where is the missing voicemail to Detective Castro where Monica is asking about insurance? So Detective Castro gets on the stand and told a particularly harsh, shall we say, view of Monica's phone call to him about the insurance. Do you remember? That was the only reason he was put on the stand. They tape recorded everything, hours, hundreds of hours, every interview, every phone call. Where's that one? Guess we lost it. It's probably the same place where the tape recordings of what happened in the police car didn't work when they were arrested. Marco asked his attorney to draft a letter and offered it to Monica. Marco, remember, asked his attorney to draft a letter that Monica could use in trying to get the police and the insurance company to move on this. Again, this is pre-arrest, post-arrest. Pre-arrest, everyone's on the same side. Post-arrest, when it's the first time they're being interviewed, suddenly everything she does turns to guilt. Ms. Obad, Deborah, was the one who tried to do anything to help this situation and tried to get the insurance information on her own. And they're saying, oh no, Obad was doing what Monica wanted to do. Does Deborah Obad strike you as the kind of woman who takes orders or does what she thinks is right? She took over. Yeah, she did. She was what we would call a balabusta, which means someone who's in everyone's business. But she had a good heart. She was trying to help. So she did help. And everything that she did, you are now told she only did because Monica told her to. Everyone wanted to see her get the life insurance. They had a life in front of them. They didn't know about the 6 weeks yet of salary. That was a few weeks later, which, by the way, went into effect for everybody, right, from Wella. All they knew was they had a mortgage, they had to pay, they had car payments, they had the university, and they had a husband who no longer was working because he was dead. They had insurance, they had medical care, all the things that they didn't know about for at least 2 weeks later that Wella was going to take care of. Let's go on. Monica forwards, I'm just reading this because it's quite eye-opening. Monica forwards Parshall's life insurance email not only to Baker, but also her sister Anna and Marco. Look at this exhibit. Now this exhibit shows that a few days before the email that the prosecution told you, who did she send the first email clearing herself to? Who did she send it to? Did she send it to Anna? Did she send it to her family? Did she send it to her children? Like, why would you send it to your children? No. She sent it to Baker. The only one she cared about was Baker, not her family. Well, the fact that she sent it to Baker, who is still her lover, and she has no reason to believe committed the murder, because they wouldn't tell her for 4 months. Should have told her the first time and sat her down and said, you're having an affair with the guy who murdered your husband. What do you say about that? Tell us about it. Don't follow them and trail them to get tawdry photos and pictures for 4 months. But what's worse is they tried to tell you that she was so in love with her husband more than her family, her kids, that the only one she sent it to, at least the first one she sent it to, that she is going to be cleared of the insurance, which was bullshit, because they were arresting her as soon as she got here, was her lover. Sounds bad, doesn't it? Look at the first email that was sent on June 7, 2017. That is from Parshall to Monica. See, it says Monica, hotmail.com. Subject. Hi, I have a late meeting tomorrow with our burglary task force guys who have a good lead. If I can verify this info, boy, they got good at this ruse, didn't they? If I can verify this info, we can fire on a letter to MetLife to clear the way for the insurance payout. I may need info next week. We'll let you know ASAP. They do still want to take a look at your phone bill that lists incoming phone calls for January. You can email or fax it to 81837. She did. Okay? That message was forwarded to Anna and Marco, and they even met, I'll read the transcript, to celebrate. To celebrate. And then, well, here's the text. This was the testimony of Marco on the stand. And did she text you again a screenshot of another message from Detective Parshall saying that they're clear on the letter from life insurance secretary? Secretary is typing it up, and MetLife should have it by the end of the week. Next week, or the following. Yes, she did. Okay, when you were in New York, did the defendant show you these messages or this particular text message from Parshall? We spoke about it. Or these emails from Parshall. In person? Yes. In person. And the testimony was they were all in New York with Anna celebrating the medical school graduation, I believe, of someone's daughter. Right? Medical graduation. So 2 days before they get the email, the final one from Parshall, which she does forward to Baker, she lets the family know that this is all coming. Why didn't they tell you that? It's right in the discovery that they provided to her. Why didn't they tell you that? Instead, you know how it was presented? Just have it replayed if you want to. They sent it to Baker and nobody else. And he was The first one she thought of, the last one before her children or anyone else. Yeah, after 2 days before, she let everyone know that it was coming. And of course it wasn't coming. And of course when they landed, a few days later, they arrested them all. After they interviewed Jessica and then told her, oh, by the way, your mom's been arrested. You better tell your family. Can we go on? Look at what her bank account was as the day of the murder. $63,000 and $43,000 in debt. Okay? Now, we know the calls to Detective Parshall, you've heard them. And then we got into the divorce versus death. Let's just move on. You've seen that chart, which supposedly says that she's going to get $1,500,000 if he's dead. The problem was they overvalued the stock options by a landslide. They didn't consider spousal support. They didn't know about Fabio's 6-month salary. Didn't put it in there. They had nothing about Fabio's income from Scissor Boy, the kickbacks he was getting, because Scissor Boy was working with Wella and the money was going into Monica's account. And what did they tell her after Fabio died? That's it. No more. He's dead. We're not gonna send you any more money. We can't. I mean, Fabio's dead. She lost all that income, which she knew was coming in every month. Still had the motive to kill him. There was not one credible or reliable calculation by the prosecution's financial expert. This was Jane No. Remember her, the nice lady who came up there? And remember she was saying, I was asked by the prosecution, I guess Eversbacher wasn't enough because Eversbacher didn't use alimony and misapplied the stock options to the day of death rather than the day that they were exercised. So she tries to say also that the stock options were worth, who knows, what? 200, 300, 400,000, 453,000. She gave that figure on the day of death versus divorce. She could have gotten 453,000, which she says was conservative, a conservative figure. So I said, so this after we went through, remember, well, let's see, the stock options, they're worth what they are when you get them, and then if they go up, they're worth more, and if they go down, they're worth less. Isn't that right? And she says, yes. So this figure of 453, which she said was conservative, was way off. Yes. Okay. I said, that's okay. And she says, I realized that in retrospect. Okay. And the total amount that someone would have gained would have been somewhere around 72,000. So she testifies on direct 493 and finally agrees in retrospect it would have been 72,000. Let's go on. Hold on that for 1 second. Let me remind you again, whether it was the options or the income or the other options from Canada or whatever she had coming, in those stock options, not once between the date of the death until this trial started did she try to get one penny of those options. This was the motive, or at least one of them, right, for killing him? Death versus divorce? Worth far more dead than alive? They wouldn't have even been exercised if Procter & Gamble hadn't written that letter. And yet, the prosecutor makes a big deal about Mr. Rubin. You didn't even check, did you? What's that got to do with what they were worth? Yeah, he should have checked earlier, and maybe they would have been sold and put in the estate earlier. And he was hired by Luigi. We didn't put up that death versus divorce chart. They did. Not us. They did. And then it was shown to be totally false. He was worth far more alive than dead, and they left out the third option, stay married. You get all the income, and he has life insurance, and they renegotiate every 3 years. What do you have to kill him for? What is her motive? Zero. What is Baker's motive? I want her for myself. And I'm smart enough to know, especially after Christmas, when she's spending all this time with her family and not with him, that this is not going to last. But if he's dead, who does she have to turn to? She can't tell everyone she's been having an affair with him. She's fearful of that. My God, she brought this man into the family and into her life, and he ends up being a murderer. That's always possible, isn't it? That he gets caught. Or Fabio's dead, and let me tell you who I've been having an affair with, Robert Baker, child molester, polygamist, who knows what else. She's never going to end up with him if she has her way, and he knows that. Let's move on. We're almost done here. Big deal about Viber and WhatsApp. The records, no records show Monica deleted Viber on January 23rd, like they said. Their own data expert and Detective Roberts say they cannot determine when Monica deleted Viber. And then Baker and Monica started using WhatsApp, but Monica does not register for WhatsApp until 4 days later, not the night of the murder, as they tried to tell you. WhatsApp is a completely normal, popular messaging app. There's evidence Fabio was using it, WhatsApp, well before and as early as August 2015. And when Detective Roberts, who tried to say that she deleted it the very night or signed up the very night of the murder, she finally admits, I'm not quite certain if and when they actually did deactivate or remove Viber from their phones. And by the way, does it really matter that Baker keeps telling her, go on Viber, go on WhatsApp, do this, do that? He's the one who's covering up the affair as much as she is, and the last thing she wants is that affair to be known. The last thing she wants is that affair to come out. Let's move on. You know, we talked about burner phones. We put this up there because this is what the prosecution's expert says. It's something that you can use to hide your interactions with a spouse or a loved one. Probably more to deceive your spouse than commit a crime. But they're out there and they're used on a regular basis. The prosecution's expert said that. So when Baker says, here's a burner phone, use this burner phone to Monica or to Austin or to anyone else, yeah, that's what it is used for, to cover up affairs. Doesn't make it right. And she's nervous about it after the murder because someone's going to find out that she's having an affair with Robert Baker. And she's just as worried about it before the murder, that she's having an affair with Robert Baker. Everything, as I told you, that she did to hide this affair is consistent with someone who doesn't want it to be known. Two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to innocence, one of which points to guilt. You are required to adopt the one that points to innocence. Can we move on? Okay. Again, we're just trying to show that these arguments about Monica's interviews, and she totally was uncooperative, and was only trying to find out and figure out who murdered her husband, is what really happened here. Because they misrepresented everything else. She gave her password to her home security system right away. She told the police to go and recover the neighborhood surveillance footage. And she was honest about her route during the day of the murder. Right? She could have said, you know what, on my day home from the murder, if she wanted to cover up why it took 11 minutes when I told you she should have made it use 30 minutes so they could get away and Bella wouldn't walk in on him. She could have said, yeah, I stopped somewhere else They didn't have video of her even leaving Ralph's. From the very beginning, she told them, I went to Target, I went to Ralph's, I came home at this time. It was 5 minutes after Fabio was killed. She controlled the time. She was honest. And they're using that as evidence of guilt. Let's move on. This we've talked about. They tried to say, well, Austin doesn't know much about the justice system, so he wanted an attorney, and another baloney. He knew well about it, well enough to say, yeah, I'll tell you what you want. Get me an attorney first and a deal. Let's move on. I want you to understand that the court, when the prosecution finishes their rebuttal, is going to provide you with the applicable law. And it's going to talk about conspiracy to commit murder and intent, all the things that Ms. Silverman went through for days. This is the law. That's fine, but you have to find the facts first before you apply the law. The law I want you to apply, the law that both sides should want you to apply, is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence, two reasonable interpretations, and you must corroborate the testimony of Austin. And that is, you can't just rely on, he said Monica, Baker said Monica did it. Baker said Monica knew. Baker said Monica was in on it. Baker said Monica wanted it dead. We had three-way calls, of which there is no evidence of any three-way calls, and all the rest I read to you. So remember that instruction. The judge gives you an instruction. It doesn't mean you find guilty or not guilty. It means you apply the instructions to the facts. And first you determine the facts. And if you determine that she did not knowingly intend to kill him, it's over. It's over. Let's go on. I learned a long time ago when I was in law school that Thomas Jefferson once said the cross-examination is the linchpin of democracy. And then got to get Alexander Hamilton in there since he had that hit play. The first duty of society is justice. So what does that mean to you? That means that what this trial is about is not just what they present, but what we present. And a witness may get up there and sound like the family's witnesses did for good reason, that she was the second coming of Attila the Hun, or Madame New, if you have your Vietnam history war, you remember. As evil a woman as they could be. And then you find out that none of them were interviewed till after the police told them she killed Fabio. They told you she was covering up and deleting and doing all those things to cover up the murder, and we showed you they were doing it to cover up the affair. They told you that Austin was in on it and told you that Monica knew about it, and we told you in 20 different ways what a liar he was and why he lied. And whatever you can say about Baker, at least he didn't get a deal. We showed you what a controlling, manipulative, evil person he was. Boy, did she make a stupid mistake. Mistake that brought a man into the lives of her family that she will have to live for the rest of her life, and has already lived for 8 years. And she is guilty of a lot of things. Stupidity, duplicity, lying, adultery, all the things you saw up there. All the things. But she is not guilty of murder. Now, someone gave me this a long time ago when I was a young attorney, right after I was in the DA's office, before a lot of you were born, probably. And I think what it shows, because there's no way to know what reasonable doubt means beyond a reasonable doubt, except that you are reasonable people. And if you have a doubt about her guilt, your vote is not guilty. Your job isn't here to find her innocent. I hope you do. I wish there was a verdict innocent. We don't think she had anything to do with it. That's tough in a case like this. I realize it. I realize that. She's here for a reason, yeah. She was having an affair with someone who murdered her husband, and she hid it, and she was arrested, and they threw her in a cell, and she said things to her lover and did things for her lover that didn't sound great. But she did not commit or orchestrate or conspire to commit the murder of her husband. Now, I'm hoping that you find her proven not guilty. You can't write that down. I hope you believe that. If you feel she probably did not do it, your vote is still not guilty. She may not be guilty, your vote is still not guilty. Suspected, probably, possibly, likely, even highly likely. Now those are the words of the person who prepared the chart, John McDoughy. It doesn't say that in the jury instruction. It says an abiding conviction of the truth of the charge. Which means you're going to believe in your conviction that your verdict is correct. You're going to believe in that the rest of your life. If someone came up to you a month or a year or 2 years from now and said, you know, Austin finally came out and admitted that she had nothing to do with it, would you be surprised? Because if you wouldn't be surprised, then you're not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. You've got to be way up there. And I just read you what that says. And it dovetails with that, and it dovetails with presumed innocent and two reasonable interpretations of the evidence. You are required to adopt the one that points to innocence and reject the one that points to guilt. Now, she has been sitting there for 9 weeks, but she has been sitting in a prison for 8 years. The only one who throughout this case, who was charged, that has consistently said, I am not guilty. No deals, no nothing. They all made deals, they all pled. No deals, no nothing. 8 years. She has suffered for her choices, and they were horrible. But she's not guilty of first-degree murder, of destroying a family, of putting her daughter in danger of being murdered when she could have controlled the whole thing. So I hope, yes, that you find her in your mind innocent, because I think she's been proven innocent. But you don't have to even get close to that. All you have to find is the prosecution has not proven her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And then come out there and you say the words that she has been waiting to hear for 8 years. Not Monica, you're a great person. Not Monica, you did the right thing. Not Monica, you were a great wife. Not Monica, you were a great mother. Not Monica, you were even a great person. But Monica, you're not a murderer. And they have not proven you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. She's waiting to hear to say the words she's been waiting. She wants you to say the words she's been waiting to hear for 8 years. Monica Sementilli, you are not guilty of these charges. And we hope and expect you to return that verdict, however long or however short it takes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will be in recess for lunch until 1:30. The admonition applies. Have a good lunch. People may close.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm sure you're happy to hear this is the last time you'll be hearing from us. This is the rebuttal. So the main point of rebuttal is to basically rebut points and statements that the defense brought out. I won't be going through all the evidence again. My co-counsel did a very, very, very thorough job of it. And the reason she was so thorough and spent the amount of days that she did was because every detail in this case matters. Every single detail matters. And it's those details and those points that have been brought out, the statements from witnesses that have come out, the evidence you've been shown, that when you put it all together, it forms a picture of what really happened. And it shows you the involvement that the defendant had in conspiring to kill Fabio. It was pointed out many, many times, it's never one piece of evidence. It's the collective effort of all the evidence that you saw over the last few weeks, months, I should say, a couple months, that points to the guilt of the defendant. The defense started this opening with, "This is just an affair." And that has been the theme continuously from the defense the entire trial. This is just an affair. She didn't know anything about it. And they stated it in closing. Again, it became the theme. This is just an affair. But this is a lot more than just an affair. And I think you've seen that through the testimony and the evidence that's been presented to you. An affair, although is not condoned by most people, is about lies. We have that. It's about deceit. You're deceiving people. You're deceiving your family. You're deceiving your loved ones. But this one takes it to another level. There's planning involved here. We have where we started with an affair and the deceit and the lies that are part of having an affair. But that went a step further. They started talking about their future, where they're going to live when the kids are out of the house, where they're going to travel to. They started planning. This affair turned to murder. That was one obstacle, the obstacle that stood in the way of the happiness of the defendant and Baker. This wasn't just an affair. We've used the terms sick, twisted. That's what it was. You saw a lot of evidence to a lot of conduct, a lot of statements of what these two meant to each other. They meant everything to each other. Even after Robert Baker is arrested, Monica is arrested, they continue the same kind of talk. In fact, one could say it intensified, because now they're in it together, ride or die. That means something to them. Ride or die, Bonnie and Clyde. They're in this together forever. They started this affair, and they're going to see it through until the end, and that means being together at any cost. And finally, you end this affair with the cover-up. There was a lot of cover-up in this case. So once again, I emphasize to you that this isn't just an affair. What may have started as an affair turned into something a lot more deadly. You know through the evidence that this affair started around early 2016, maybe into 2015, when the defendant joined the racquetball club. And you knew that she was already looking. So this fairy tale of a happy marriage was a farce. It didn't exist. She was already looking. She tried with Matt Nurse and was rejected. So it's actually the defendant who started this entire scenario, why we're all here. She was not happy in her marriage. She told Matt Nurse she was not happy in her marriage. But that affair then began with Robert Baker, and it quickly started escalating. And it's the escalation of this affair that ultimately turns deadly. And it escalated to, by March, she was so bold. The risks were being taken now. They were going out in public, in Los Angeles, in the area, on double dates with another couple, while she was married to Fabio. While she lived at home with her husband and kids, she's going out to dinner. It's getting bolder, riskier. She goes to Vegas then in July of 2016. And keep in mind, this trip to Vegas was with her husband. She went with her husband, Fabio, while she's having an affair with Baker, to a work event in Las Vegas. And she couldn't even go away for one weekend. Not one weekend with her husband, without inviting Baker to come along. So what began as a trip with her and her husband to Vegas now turned into a trip for her to see her boyfriend, her lover. And she couldn't even spend time with her husband and wait. She couldn't wait to get away from him. The minute he went to another meeting at another hotel, she was with Baker. This public persona that she has presented to her family and her friends is all a lie. And the defense had her daughter, Jessica, on the stand and had Jessica talk about this wonderful video that she took of her parents. And you know what? It's really sad. It's sad for Jessica that they're doing that to her. That she filmed this video of her parents dancing. And even this many years later, she's in court supporting her mother, who she wants to believe in, she wants to trust, because of course her father's been murdered. No child wants to believe that her mother is the one that murdered her father. And she's showing you all this video saying, look how happy my parents were. And you know what? She probably believed it. I don't think she's lying. But that video that was filmed in October, and I think the next one was December, January, that time frame when Jessica's believing her mom and dad are so happy, her mom is telling Fabio good night, I love you, while he's out of town, sneaking out of the house, going over to Baker's, dressing up in sexy outfits and taking photos. Her mother, again, the time frame when she's videoing her parents so happy, is providing the password for her home surveillance system to Robert Baker so that he can watch them. They're teen girls coming and going. Her mother was going out with Baker while Fabio's out of town during the same time frame, during all these videos, bringing him back to her house, having him sleep in her marital bed, and the daughter finds her in the morning, and then she lies to her and says, oh, Sheila was here too, when you now know through the evidence nobody else was there. She went out partying with Baker, brought him home, and he slept in her bed. During the same time that they're filming the videos of her happy parents, the defendant's sending the itineraries of Fabio every time he goes out of town to Baker. But again, you bring your daughter in here and you let her get on the stand and testify how happy and loving her parents were when she knew none of this. But this affair kept escalating. It didn't just end with, I want to be with Robert Baker, we're having a great time. And I think the defense made a statement about, she didn't need to kill Fabio. She was happy with the way things were. Well, she wasn't. Why? Because she wasn't Mrs. Baker yet. How much more evidence do you have to see to know that she wanted to be Mrs. Baker? That was her ultimate goal. She wasn't happy with how things were. Fabio was the barrier to that happiness. And this is November of 2016 when she wrote Mrs. Baker on the mirror. And I'm a little shocked that the defense even insinuated that Robert Baker, you see a black bar there, that's because she was naked from the waist down. So Robert Baker said, take off your underwear right now, grab your lipstick and write Mrs. Baker on the mirror. Completely unreasonable. Back to our reasonable instruction. That's a completely unreasonable assumption. She wrote that because she wanted to. How do we know that? Because as it continued, as the affair continued and she's arrested, Mrs. Baker continued. How many letters from jail when she called herself Mrs. Baker? For eternity. Mrs. Robert L. Baker. That's the goal. This is after she's been told that Robert Baker's DNA has been found all over her house. She's still continuing this because she's been in on it the whole time. She's so detached from the murder of Fabio when it happens because it's already been in motion. This has been her goal. This is a good time for her. That's why you see her out celebrating with Robert Baker. She's the opposite of mourning. Now she's closer to that goal of getting what she's wanted for all these months, to be Mrs. Baker. We get to Robert Baker, And defense, from the beginning, again in opening, consistently has told you that this is all Robert Baker. Well, what are they going to say? Obviously, the defendant's on trial. Robert Baker's pled. We all know his role in the murder. So now it has to be all Robert Baker's fault. And he's this master manipulator. I think the words were, he had total control over that woman. What evidence did you see in this trial anywhere that he had total control over that woman? The evidence actually showed the opposite. She did what she wanted, when she wanted, and she didn't care. She didn't care that her daughters were upset. She didn't care that her mother was upset. She didn't care that her sister, her friends were upset. She did what she wanted. And this master manipulator, there's been a lot of conversation back and forth between my co-counsel and defense about whether he's dumb or not dumb. What I will say about Robert Baker is he's not the evil genius behind the curtain. He's not. This is a man who answered true dat to answers on the witness stand. This is the guy who, when he did kill Fabio, he cut his own hand and ran around the house dripping his blood everywhere, leaving a trail everywhere that it was him. Then furthermore, he got into Fabio's car, drove off in the Porsche, and dripped blood in the Porsche. This guy is not capable of setting this whole thing up. There has to be brains behind this. No one's ever said the defendant isn't smart or cunning or manipulative, because that's exactly what she is. And for Robert Baker to figure this out, he needed to know the timing. He needed to know when he could go there. And that story about we talked every day, I knew her schedule, that's not enough to bank on. He needed to be told, like Austin told you, when to go. It's go time. Let's go. Remember how he hurried up Austin? He said, let's go. Austin told you. He said, let's go. We got to go. It was a rush because that window was small. And that's the whole point. Remember, this murder wasn't supposed to happen on the 23rd. So that's the new game changer. There's a new plan. The defendant made herself unavailable. She knew the Friday before Jessica would be babysitting that Monday at 4. She knew Bella had an interview at 4, and she made herself unavailable at 4 and out of the house. The window was 4. He's jogging up the hill at 4:18. Furthermore, he had to know he could get in the house. What was his plan? What was his plan if all the doors are locked? Did anyone ever think about that? If the defendant had nothing to do with this, what happens when you get there and all the doors are locked? As Austin told you, she said to him, the front door will be unlocked. And they went right through the front door. This backdoor theory that the defense has presented to you in his argument is a theory. There's no evidence whatsoever that supported any backdoor entry. None. He also needed to know to take the DVR box. How would he think to take the DVR box? Okay, he had access. Yes, he knew about that, right? Which is already weird in itself. And you have to ask yourself, why does he even have access to watch the comings and goings of the Sementilli family? But he has to know to take the DVR box, and he has to know where it is. Now, we know he's been in her house because he's been in there and he's slept with her in her own house twice. The second time being, again, when Fabio was out of town, and they were on their Vegas trip together, husband and wife, when Baker showed up, and then she came back with Baker in Austin. So we do know that Baker's been there twice, sleeping with her in the house while Fabio was still alive. But again, no evidence he would have known where that DVR box was. The Porsche keys. How would he ever have known that the Porsche keys were kept in that drawer where the blood was, where that 12 placard was? The answers to all these are obvious. She told him. She gave him that information. This was what you call an inside job. He had knowledge of this. He had to get it from somewhere. That's the only reasonable conclusion you can come to, is that he was given that information by the defendant. Defense counsel also brought up this letter that he wrote in August of 2023, and I want to point something out. It's not like when you compare Austin and Baker to each other, There's really no comparison. They committed a crime together, but it's very obvious that they had different mental states and different roles. That doesn't mean you have to believe everything each of them says or you want to be their best friend, but they're two very different people. When we talk about control, there was control over Austin to a degree. There was a large age gap. Austin had grown up really idolizing Rob Baker. But when you really look at it, the two of them, there's a big difference in them and their roles and why they did it. And they've both pled. They're both going to be in prison for quite a long time. And I'll get to that in a little bit about the difference between that. But when he writes this letter in August of 2023, now for 6 years, Baker maintained his innocence. So let's remember that. He pleaded not guilty, and he remained steadfast on not guilty for 6 years. It wasn't until August of 2023 that he pled. And we talked about that plea, and Mr. Levine brought up the plea agreement. And let me be clear on that. That was an open plea agreement to the court. That was not a negotiated plea with the DA's office. And there's been all this talk about he didn't take a deal. He was never offered a deal. Let me repeat that. Mr. Baker was never offered any way, shape, or form of a deal by the DA's office. So when he pled to the charges to the court. Judge Cohen took the plea. And during those pleas, why didn't he say who the co-conspirator was? Why didn't he say what the overt act was he was committed? That's not how a plea works. You plead to the charge, Judge Cohen took it, and then you're sentenced. And I want to point out, when he pled to the charge, he pled to murder in the first degree, which we all know is the premeditated murder. He also pled to, as has been told you already, he pled to the fiduciary gain, or financial gain. Keep in mind, he pled to financial gain. What financial gain would Robert Baker ever get from this? He wouldn't, unless she gave him money. So when he pled guilty, I plead guilty that I did this murder for financial gain. I admit that that's why I did it, is what he's saying to you. He's not getting any money unless she's promised it to him. Same with the conspiracy. When he pled guilty to conspiracy, I conspired. That's 2 or more people. Austin wasn't even arrested. Austin's name wasn't even on the table. Austin wasn't identified as the second killer, but he pled guilty to the conspiracy. And again, during a plea, they don't ask you the names of these questions aren't asked. So I want to be clear on that so that you're not misled during this plea and how it came about with Mr. Baker. The letter that he wrote then, after he pled, he wrote this self-serving letter. And I say self-serving because it was ridiculous, and even Mr. Baker got on the stand and said, yeah, it was a lie. So we know that Mr. Baker's lied over and over and over again. And in that letter, he came up with a story after, 7 years of thinking about this. The best that he could come up with in 7 years was, Dear Monica, I broke into your house to kill Fabio because I wanted to leave a birthday present under your pillow. And Fabio snuck up behind me and attacked me, and I must have stabbed him. I don't really remember. I blacked out. That's what he came up with after 7 years of being in custody. And he wrote that letter and gave it to the defense, and the defense asserts he didn't know it would end up with a prosecution. Of course he did. Of course he did, because during these 7 years, as you saw, their jail mail has all been confiscated. Their phone calls have been tracked and turned over. He knows all this because once it's done, it's turned over to the defense. The defense tells them, and there's calls and letters saying from the lawyers, stop talking to each other. Stop writing to each other. Because the DA's getting it all. And just like happened, we used it in court. So again, when the defense says there's been no communication since she found out he was the killer in 2018, what changed in 2018? I don't remember anyone telling you what changed in 2018 that's when he decided to stop communicating, or she decided to stop communicating. She knew about the DNA when they were arrested in 2017. So why did it take a year to stop communicating. What changed? Again, nothing. Nothing changed except the lawyers saying, stop. You guys are going to get yourselves in trouble. All this stuff's getting confiscated. It looks really bad because you know what? It is bad. Because they didn't care. They didn't care because this was a plan that they had together and they were going to see it through to the end. Ride or die for eternity, linked and synced. The divorce versus death, and I'm not going to go through all that. I promise you I won't. But the reason that you heard from Ms. Ebersbacher is because the defense was going to say always what they said. She could have just divorced him. She had no reason to kill him. She could have just divorced him. And we knew that argument was coming because that's a logical argument to make if you're the defense. Just like they said, she didn't have to kill him. She could have just left him. Although they did maintain that she was happy in her marriage. She's happy the way things were. But they also gave the caveat of, but she could have divorced him. Well, we know divorce wasn't an option. There's social barriers to why divorce wasn't an option. The family would never accept it. The defense and the prosecution agree on these issues. They're never going to accept her leaving Fabio Sementilli, this man loved by everybody. And when I say everybody, everybody. They're never going to accept it for her to go to this porn star 55-year-old man who lives in an apartment in Canoga Park, who is a racquetball league coordinator as his hobby job, I think he referred to it as, who has no money to his name, and oh, by the way, has, I lost count of it, 6 or 7 felony convictions for sexual assault of a 14-year-old. Never going to accept that. But there is a financial aspect. So even if you're going to get over the social barrier, which she couldn't, she knew she couldn't. Financially, what's better off? That's why Ms. Ebersbacher prepared that table to show you that here's the estimate of what divorce would be. Here's an estimate what death would be. So that if this comes up, you can see the difference. But the one glaring point that cannot be ignored is life insurance. You have to die. You get a lump sum of money. If you die, you get life insurance. There's no mediation. There's no going to court because it's a contested divorce. There's no variables about spousal support. And by the way, Ms. Ebersbacher did touch on spousal support and said, I can't put it in because I don't know what it would be, which is a fair statement. She doesn't know. There's all these variables with divorce that are unknown, but what is the one known thing? When you die and you have life insurance, you get a lump sum. There you go. That's probably as far as the defendant was thinking, quite honestly. But nevertheless, Mr. Malatesta came into court, and he testified for you. But what was ironic with the testimony of Mr. Malatesta is he came in under the presumption that he was going to rebut Marie Ebersbacher, the forensic accountant, on the death versus divorce. His credentials, though, was Melrose Place, Cheers, myself, Law and Order. He rambled on and on about that. So right at the very beginning, there's a little skeptical about why he's here. He told you he worked as a mediator now, but when I questioned him, and again, this is always coming out on cross-exam, he's never testified as an expert in criminal court as a divorce expert. Family accountant. Never. Never done it. So you're going to start with a murder trial with a couple days' notice. He said, I'm not an estate lawyer. I'm not here to testify about divorce. So you're basically coming in, hired by the defense, one-sided, to talk about the benefits of a divorce. I'm sorry, I'm not going to testify about death. The benefits of divorce. But you are not equipped to compare it to death. So what's the point here? What is the point here? And again, you don't know the Sementillis. You don't know their situation. You could estimate, which is what he did, and said, I'm going to put a number of $90,000 for 10 years. And he came up with a number. And again, on cross, I had to say, does that mean that she never has to work? She doesn't have to do anything? Because I think this is a big part. The defendant wants the money, the lump sum, the life insurance. She doesn't have to work. She can continue her life and go be Mrs. Baker. It's easy. But Mr. Malatesta opined these things, but he hadn't talked to anybody. He only gave you, what we really got was his guess of $90,000 for 10 years. $7,500. Jason Rubin came in, and again, called by the defense. And the first thing that he said to you, which should have caused a little bit of concern, is, I have 2 careers. All right, well, which career are you here for? And he said, I am a fiduciary to administer the estate of Fabio, and I'm a forensic accountant. Okay? His real goal was, again, to dispute Marie Ebersbacher. He talked to you about, oh yeah, I talked to Miss Ebersbacher about that chart. Defense never asked Miss Ebersbacher about this case because, in fact, I think she testified to, I got documents from the probate. She's doing the analysis. All they do is they provide documents from the estate. She has no reason to have to talk to Mr. Rubin about her own job. He provides the documents. She prepares the report. But when he comes in here, there's a clear conflict of interest in what's going on now. You were hired by the estate, whether it be Luigi or somebody else. This was years ago when Fabio was murdered. You were hired by the estate to administer the probate estate. That's your job. So why are you coming in testifying for the defense based on things that are way out of that lane? Way out of that lane. Asked about alimony. He started opining on alimony and then finally conceded that he's not an expert. Shouldn't be talking about alimony. A couple times he used the terms, in Monica's mind. Why in the world, if you're hired as a probate administrator, are you ever coming into a criminal murder trial, hired by the defense, testifying to things such as, I was doing this in Monica's mind, I believe. Completely inappropriate, complete conflict of interest, whether he denies it or not. The stock options was really boring. I know that. We all got a little sleepy on that. But the point was to show you that he almost blew that deadline twice. Let's give him the first one, right? Okay, the first one, he said, well, I didn't know about it. Procter & Gamble didn't tell me. Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of documents. Give him the benefit of the doubt. They did then say, hey, your first, they're going to expire, and this is why I went through this. The second said, he almost lost him. Procter & Gamble sent a letter saying, hey, it's happening again. We don't have an obligation to send you this letter, but we are. They're going to expire. You better exercise them. But his smug answer every time I asked him was, well, I exercised them. He couldn't even concede that you almost blew the deadline. You know what happens? And I asked him, when you don't exercise these options, well, the answer is you lose it. They expire. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to the estate he would have lost had not those letters come through. He was completely unprepared to testify. I get 300 plus emails. I have a lot of clients. I think that between him and Mr. Malatesta, they thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I get to come to court. I'm going to testify in this big murder trial. Hey, defense, what are you asking me? I'm going to ask you this. Great. Completely unprepared for any cross-examination. Completely unprepared to answer any questions that were not already told that were going to be asked to him. Another thing that he did was he went into Miss Ebersbacher's chart and he started saying, oh, her numbers about death versus divorce, they're completely wrong because she didn't value this side company. I know that you guys didn't know a lot about this side company. It was another detour that we took in the trial, but there was a side company, as you heard the evidence, that Fabio was an investor in an app, right? And part of that was a bigger company, as you heard the testimony, and it's Wella was paying this scissor boy company, and then part of that, Fabio got a part of that, right? Well, Mr. Rubin, on his own, says Miss Ebersbacher's wrong, and again, we were going round and round about numbers that were probably pretty boring to everybody, and said, I'm going to estimate this as a $385,343 win for the divorce side. That's how much she didn't put in there, and she's wrong, and she doesn't know what she's doing. So he came up with this number. Again, it got into, I took a 30% from this, that, whatever. But nothing was based on any financial documents other than I looked at some emails. It was very strange how he came up with this number, right? But what was not strange is ultimately, and this was on direct exam, he told you, we, the probate administrators, settled that company for $25,000. Settled the whole thing for $25,000. So how can you come in and estimate the value of that company at Fabio's share at $385,000 when you settled it? And that's a fact. I settled it for $25,000. And then again, take 50% off that for divorce, which he didn't do. Again, numbers, not the end all of this trial, but I just want to show you that these defense witnesses who come in and spin these things and tell you these different versions and that prosecution witnesses are wrong are meant to distract you from the evidence in the case and the truth of the case. Does this change the fact that the defendant conspired to kill Fabio? Not at all. But we can't let that go because it's important that you know who the witnesses are that are testifying to you. And at the end of the day, again, the lump sum of the insurance money is what she wanted and needed. And when I asked him about life insurance, again, you're the probate administrator. If you look back or think back, he said, I have no comment. The defense brought him back because the defense said, I want to ask you one more thing. Were you paid by us? He's like, no, I was not. Once again, I don't think he was ready for the follow-up. But are you billing the probate estate? I don't know. I don't think that's really the answer. I think the answer he's most likely going to bill the probate estate. And who is that estate? The children of Fabio and the defendant if she's found not guilty. Isn't that kind of the same thing as billing the defense? Defendant chose death out of her options, right? Death versus divorce. She can be the victim, she can get sympathy, she can be the grieving widow. Slowly, she can incorporate Baker into her life this way. Remember, if you get a divorce, you can't just all of a sudden be like, I'm going with this pedophile. But death, everyone feels sorry for her. And you know what? Everyone kind of was accepting Baker into her life. He's helping Jessica with the car. Jessica testified, I liked him. You heard statements before about the sister had played racquetball with him. The mom had lunch with them. She's already easing Baker into life because they're accepting him now. He's helping her. She's grieving. They all feel sorry for the defendant. Pretty strategic. And then my favorite, Deborah Obad, the girl's second mother. Everybody was wrong, according to Deborah Obad. And everyone probably knows a Deborah Obad, but she wanted to be involved. She wanted to be relevant. She inserted herself into this case. And you can't help but think of the saying, with friends like this, who needs enemies? On one end, she's proclaiming to be the defendant's really good friend. On the back end, she's going behind her back so many times, accusing her of things. This woman was suspicious of her friend. She does not want to admit it on the stand. But the things that she did and calling the police that many times, she was pointing the police in the direction of the defendant, not just Baker. But all the inconsistencies and all the backtracking and all the perjury she committed. Salma Cherry. There is the text right there. It's clear as day. Monica is asking about the insurance. Her statement, Monica didn't ask, it was all me. All right, that's where we started. No, that was all me. She's coming in, minimizing. And again, remember, this is a defense witness. And the defense brought up the point to her, Miss Obad, didn't the prosecution have you under subpoena? Weren't you going to be their witness? She said, yes. And then it came out, prosecution hasn't talked to her in 4 years. Came out on the stand, right? That's because the prosecution is not going to put someone on the stand who they know is going to perjure themselves. She added no value to the prosecution team, as you could see. But the defense thought, aha, She supports Monica. We have to humanize the defendant. We have to bring someone on who's still her friend and show the human side. That's fair. That's a defense strategy, but I think it might have backfired. The grand jury testimony. Did Monica ask you to call Well the night of the murder? Yes. And did she tell you that she wanted to find out about his benefits? Correct. She came into trial, she denied it. I didn't say that at the grand jury. Then she finally admitted it when I showed her. And then she continued to deny that she talked to Henry Meyer about life insurance. Again, she testified at the grand jury. I can show her that. And every time, well, I mean, if that's what you say, I didn't say it. I'm showing you it in print, what was transcribed. So the grand jury testimonies were apparently wrong. The recorded interviews with Parshall. And this is the example of exactly why you record conversations with these witnesses. This is why. Because fast forward 8 years, 7 years, they get on the stand and they don't tell the truth, or they legit don't remember. You have a transcript and you have a recording. And keep in mind, I'm showing her transcripts. If for 1 second that transcript didn't match the actual recording, the defense would have gotten up here and told you. So those transcripts are accurate. This is about Luigi when she denied, I never talked to Luigi about anything insurance. Tell his son, don't worry. I'm going to give him his watch, don't worry. There's a lot of insurance policies because he's in grad school now. She denied that. Monica said that. When I showed her the transcript, I guess I said that if you're reading it correctly, like I'm going to read it wrong. I shouldn't have said that because that wasn't true. All right. Then we go further into an interview with Detective Parshall. And I don't know what the problem was admitting that she had said that she saw Baker and Monica, the defendant, coming out of the bedroom, but she just did not want to admit that. She said it repeatedly, and this is back in 2017, or 18 actually, 17, after it all happened. This is February 14th. This is weeks after it happened. And then we go into talks about Anna. And the sister said in Italian, get the fuck out. And the detective even confirmed, Anna? And she said, yeah, Anna. Anna said something. So first of all, she says, well, I see that now that you showed me, but I didn't say that. I didn't see that in the bedroom. And it wasn't Anna, and now it's Morella. Again, another recording is wrong. Nothing's right here. Adam Dawson's wrong. And you know, I went round and round with Mr. Dawson, and I think he legitimately goes into the interviews and writes it. But my point being with Mr. Dawson was recording's the best method because you have an exact statement that somebody said. Notes can get lost. Notes can get skewed, or you might forget something if you're relying on memory as he testified. But we have Deborah to tell you that's exactly what happened with Mr. Dawson. Mr. Dawson's report, Deborah walked toward the bedroom, Baker and Monica were coming out. That's not correct. And then she goes on to say that Mr. Dawson's reports are incorrect. There's a reference to what Monica's mother said about get that man out of her bedroom. That's not correct either. The statement of Rob being shown the video. We know that the neighbor brought over a video that night when everyone was there. We've heard testimony that night a neighbor brought over a video. The defendant didn't watch that night, but it was in the hands of some of the family and friends, right? But she tells Detective Parshall, the neighbor who you guys got the video from has shown Rob the video. Trial, I don't think it meant Rob. That was written wrong, said wrong. I don't have an answer for that. I just have a recording and a transcript. And then once again with the interview with Mr. Dawson. She came into court, and what she wanted to do, if it wasn't clear, is to say, I decided the morning of the murder that Jessica was going to babysit for my son last minute. That way Monica would have never known, therefore Monica would have never been able to plan this. Well, that's what she's saying in court. And I confronted her with, yeah, but back in 2017 when you interviewed, you said that you set that whole babysitting job up the Friday before. Which would mean Monica would have known about the babysitting job. She denied that as well. And this was my favorite. Poor Barry. I'm sure everyone's wondering who Barry is. Barry got implicated in a murder because he's short. So from that picture, and I'm not even sure she saw the zoomed in one. I don't know what photo she saw, frankly, but you know, Barry, it's a crime to be short, I guess, because suddenly he's a killer because he's short. And the Porsche keys. She told the grand jury that the defendant kept the Porsche keys in a drawer under the DVR to the left. The picture speaks for itself, the Porsche keys, with a 12 placard where blood was found. That's when Mr. Baker went to the drawer and knew where to go to open the drawer, to get the Porsche keys out, to leave in the Porsche. And remember, Fabio drove the truck that day because he went to do that power washer thing we saw a video. So there's no Porsche keys that would be sitting on the counter, most likely. They're in the drawer, exactly where Deborah said they were. But Deborah can't even concede that because she sees the placard. She's been around this. She's been to the grand jury. She knows. Oh, this is crime scene photos, by the way. That's not where the monitor was. So now that would assume that the crime scene photographers came and moved around all the objects and then took photographs. So basically everything Deborah Obad, take it with a grain of salt. She wanted to be involved. She inserted herself into this case. But it's interesting, she hasn't talked to the defendant in 8 years or visited her. Deborah wanted to be relevant. When we get to Christopher Austin then, the big thing with Christopher Austin is, you know, he lied, he's a liar, and he got the deal of a century. Well, what I'll say about that is that if you're going to lie, and everything you set up here is a lie to get a deal, then lie right, lie big, go big. Say Monica was on the phone. Say I talked to Monica. Add her into the mix a little bit more. If we are pushing so hard, which there's no evidence anywhere that we're pushing for any of that, then say it. And by the way, this is the first time I think a defense attorney has ever said, you took too long to arrest the suspect and you guys investigated too much. Said that with Baker too. If only. But that just shows you the care and the time that the detectives took on this. I know that the defense talked about the calls too. You can't see that up there. It looks pretty far away and we're all probably a little bleary-eyed by this afternoon. But up there, we talked about the three-way calls. There's no evidence. This isn't evidence. This is Austin's record showing you on these dates on 1/6. There's multiple calls right in line. Alfred Birdsong, Baker, and Austin. All consecutive in line, going just like the calls with Isabella and her mom. Which, by the way, those calls, Isabella and her mom, I don't know who concluded that these are three-way calls. There's no evidence. If you look at the chart, it doesn't show that it's a three-way call. They're exactly close in time of the time frame, just like these are. Could someone put someone on hold and get another call in at the same time? Of course, because they're all seconds apart. So there's no evidence of any three-way calls. If we're going to say evidence of three ways for Monica and Isabella, then there you go. Same with Birdsong, Austin, and Baker, just like Austin said. The one thing, I was in Vancouver, Washington, and defense repeatedly stated Austin never mentioned the defendant in Washington. Now, what I will say, the focus was not on the defendant in Washington. You got to see Mr. Austin cross-examined, questioned at length, repeatedly. He ended up being arrested. He ended up confessing very quickly his role in it. He confessed to stabbing Fabio. No one was expecting that. He confessed it. There was no evidence that we presented to him that we even knew he was a stabber. He knew that we knew he was there because he was arrested and he was told, we know you were there. But we want to know, or the detective said, we want to know what happened in between. Just a couple points. In the interview, and this is to rebut, because we're in rebuttal, that no mention of the defendant. He met her at the gym and at her house probably 6 to 7 months before. That's at the interview. He offered it. That's a mention of the defendant. I remember that girl. I got a call. Her husband is there. He's home. That's what he said Baker told him. That's in Washington. Again, he doesn't know anything yet. That's the initial interview with these two detectives in court. It's exactly what he's consistent with what he said in court, in the proffer, and ever since. When he said he felt bad, this is in Vancouver, Washington. It's all good. She's going to get some money, is what Baker told her. Money came up. He's put in with this Perkins agent, and defense attorney, I think mistakenly, I don't think it's intentional, is referring to him as a police officer. It's not a police officer. And I repeat, it's not a police officer. The individual works for the police as a civilian who goes into a cell posing as an inmate or a co-inmate with you, and the goal is to get someone talking. There's not a script for this agent. There's not say this and this whole switch. When he made the comment about you need to switch up your story, that was the Perkins agent winging it, saying things. He wasn't told to say that. It was implied at one point that the detective said something to the effect of you need to switch up your story. It certainly wasn't the detectives that ever said anything of that nature. It's the Perkins agent talking to him. And that's where we get to the point the defense brought up. To me, and this is from talking, having a conversation normal in a cell like you're somebody together. To me, it sounded like it was the bitch who planned everything. Austin, yeah, she did. No coercion. No one's planning anything. This is Austin bringing up this female, the defendant. What was the reason? Insurance money. Again, this was all brought up in Washington. You hear there's been a lot of statements, a lot of things with Mr. Austin in interviews. But I just want to be clear what was brought up before he was ever brought to Los Angeles. But I don't know if they have anything on her except for what he told me she said. So I believe she set the whole thing up. This is his mindset the day that he's arrested. Remember, the police, the detectives here, the interview is not focused on the defendant. Nobody is saying, there's nowhere, and you didn't hear it in the testimony, saying, tell us about the female. We want to know about the defendant. You tell us, we'll give you a deal. None of that ever happened. He is arrested for murder. It's on him. He's thinking about himself, his kid, his wife. His life is over in his mind. This is talking to the agent. This is his true thoughts to the agent. This is what he's saying. He told me that she said he's home. His impression. Christopher Austin is the first one that ever brought up that 1/22, January 22nd day that the murder was supposed to happen. Nobody knew this in Washington. No questions were ever asked of it. There was no idea that this murder was supposed to happen the day before out in public until Christopher Austin told us. And the way that it came up is he started talking about it. And there's this lot of like conferring with his attorney. Of course he conferred with his attorney. His attorney was there. He's with 2 DAs and 2 detectives in a room, and he's allowed to confer with his attorney. We encourage it. And to suggest that there was anything nefarious with the attorney going on is completely inappropriate, because the attorney represented him and talked to him about, be honest with the DAs, be honest with the police. This is your time. Tell them the truth. So that's when Austin brought up this other attempt, to which the detectives and the DAs were, what are you talking about? And he starts describing it on his own. Pillars and a breezeway and a walkway, and there's a Chinese restaurant and a nail salon. We parked in the back. No idea until the detectives went back into Monica's phone, found that faux search that had been sent to her. I think it's faux search that had been sent to her, had an address attached. Googled the address, pulled up a map, took it into Austin, and he recognized it. And guess what? It matched the exact description that he had just given everybody before we ever showed him a photo. But it has to be corroborated, right? Because, again, anything with someone, we've arrested him for murder. We're not going to just take everything at face value, so you have to corroborate it. That restaurant was in the defendant's phone, and it's a pho near me. So this story about Baker, like, well, I know they always go there. Then why are you searching pho near me? If you always go there, that's not a search you would do. It's in the phone records. You can see that they're out in the area. I'll get to that in a minute. He described the location, but more importantly, it's corroborated right here in court because Robert Baker admitted it. He said they went there. For him to say that, we would have never known if he didn't tell us that. We would have never known about that plan. And when they say they're in the area, the hours of 4. So Mr. Austin said, I went there around, I think 9, but then he kept going back to, it was dark. Obviously, is the time wrong, because we know what time Fabio got there. Came out of the restaurant around 6-ish. That big red circle behind the green one that was testified to by Cy Ray, there's a big, you can see the big red circle behind the green. That's a pretty big area. That can tell him, or tell us, that he's in the general area, that area. It's not saying I'm sitting at the pho restaurant, that general area from 3-something on. He was in the area before. What were they doing? We don't know, but we know they stopped at a Ralph's, they got money, they were out, and at some point the plan changed. Fabio was going to this restaurant and they parked in that back parking lot, and we know that the attempted murder at that time, or the thought to kill him, walking up with a knife, happened, because even Baker confirmed that one. The day of the murder. I'm not going to go through the facts. I know that's there's a lot that went on the day of the murder, but what I will say about that is that the defendant set the plan in motion. She set it in motion that day. Started off seeing Baker at the gym, talking to him, opened the safe at 2:03. That's a big deal. That safe, lying about the safe being opened, that's when the gold coins got out that were used as payment. Again, something that no one really knew about these gold coins until much later. She knew that she would be gone at 4. She knew that both daughters would be gone at 4. The text with Bella, the exhibit was entered into evidence. It's up there. Again, it's small print, but it's basically showing the timing at 4:22. Bella called her, as we said. She had an interview at 4. Who knew she'd be done and on her way home by 4:22? Her mom didn't know that. That's a fast interview. Her mom probably expected her to be at her interview longer, and she was a little distance from home. So that's why the window is tight. It was probably a 4 to 5 window. Jessica's babysitting. I'll make myself out there. Bella has an interview. You got 4 to 5. Do it. They did it, by the way. It worked. So the window was fine. It did work. It was close, but it worked. But by 4:22, Bella's on her way home. She calls her mom calls her back. And then at 3 seconds later, there's an incoming call from the eye doctor, and then an outgoing call. There's no overlap of these calls. That's 4:27 and 4:28, and then at 4:37, Bella calls and talks to her mom again, and that's when her mom redirects her. And I actually said, did your mom detour you to go pick up your glasses? And she said, yes. And then I think the defense got up trying to lead her along, like, well, she didn't tell you how to, she didn't tell you that she had to go. Isabella said yes. Her mom called her and told her, go pick up your glasses, because she was coming home too fast. And she did let her daughter come home first. It's a hard pill to swallow for anyone, that resides in somebody. It's almost unfathomable, especially if you're a parent, to understand how that could happen. But this is a woman who is all about herself. And probably in some bizarre way, she convinced herself that this would all work out, her kids would be fine. But it was about herself and keeping herself out of the loop. And it did work. The window was tight. They executed it. They murdered Fabio. They got away. And then Isabella came home, and she came home right after. She did let her daughter find her dad. And that's something that you should really think about. What kind of person does that? Self-centered. The co-counsel used narcissistic, self-absorbed, someone who feels life is owed to them and their happiness. They put themselves above everybody else. The post-murder behavior was just the tip of what started to interest the police, because right off the bat, they knew that this was not your typical burglary. It was too intimate. And as soon as they realized that there was a fake ransacking, and by the way, one thing that wasn't pointed out before was, amongst other things, do you remember her IDing jewelry that was never even stolen? Like, this was just paper that the police had at the station that was jewelry. Just random jewelry, and she starts circling things. Many, not one. That looks like it, that looks like it, that. Those things were never even missing. That wasn't jewelry from her house. But that just shows you she thought it might be, so she starts going along with the program. She's so programmed at this point to follow the protocol, to follow the plan, that she'll ID jewelry that may not even exist. You saw you heard the testimony then from the detectives who followed her and her behavior. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all that again. It's odd, it's weird, it's not normal behavior. You've heard it a million times. That is not a grieving widow. Why? She's so detached. She's so detached because this is what she's wanted for so long. This is the celebration time. She continued to support Baker even after she's told about the DNA. Continues to support him. In the police car, she doesn't say, what, did you do something? What's going on? Why are you here? It's somebody talked, stick to the plan. It's already, their conspiracy's still going. They knew this day was coming or could come. All those overhears with DNA, told about the DNA, all those overhears never talks about the real killer. You know, all this behavior is just not how you would react if your husband or wife or friend was murdered. It's just not how you would react. You would want to find who these killers are. You'd want to figure out what's going on. And calling about insurance or calling saying, what's the status? Okay, I got that. But there's more. It's talking to Baker, your closest person, your confidant, she called him. Who could have done this to my husband? Oh my gosh, the real killers are out there. None of that came up ever. Wouldn't that be a normal topic of conversation? Most importantly, and I am nearing the end, I know you guys like that word, what defense didn't explain. And this is important because there's some things you just can't explain away, and they've tried. Some are okay, well, that's a good attempt at an explanation. Some are, well, maybe, but that seems, not as likely. But some are just, you can't explain them. Why did she lie to the police about not knowing anything about her DVR? What's the reason you lie to the police? They didn't explain that. When they're asking you, hey, this DVR system probably captured the killers coming into your house. What do you know about it? Who made it? What's the brand, the make, the model, anything that you know about it? She lied to him. I don't know. She knew all of that. What's the reason that you're lying? You're lying. The only logical answer is you're lying because you know that you're involved in this. You know that Rod Baker came in and just killed your husband. You don't want them to have all that. The iCloud storage that they're never going to, you don't want them to get the video of that. You don't, at this point, remember, she doesn't necessarily know what's on the video outside. And if she does, she knows that those joggers weren't really identifiable. Okay, that's what she knows. So she probably knew they existed, but that they couldn't really identify. In fact, they talk about it in the overhears where you couldn't really see the faces. But if you get that DVR, that's big. So if you're a grieving widow and your husband was just murdered in your backyard, dying, I've been, oh my God, what can I find in my house? Yes, the DVR, let me find it. I'm going to go on my computer. I'm going to figure out what it was, but she lies. I don't know anything about it when she's the one who installed it. And she knows she did. She sent the passwords to Baker. She has the paperwork. She met the guy. She lied about all that. Why? What's the reason? They didn't address it. She also denied that she could access it remotely. Why do you lie about that? You were just on it. Why would you ever lie to the police about that? You know what? I was just at Target and I just checked it. I didn't see anything. She lies about it and says, I can't access it. Why in the world would you? You would because you know exactly who went in there to kill him because you set it up. There is no reasonable explanation why you would lie about that when you were just on it. She lied about meeting him at Target, and you even know that she met him at Target because Baker, in his letter, whether it's lie or truth, depending on which version, said we met at Target. In that letter that he wrote, this supposed confession letter? Why are you lying if you met Target? Well, they'll say, and that was where we get into the defense, oh, she didn't want them to know about the affair. All right. But why did she meet him at Target before? Once it all came out, right? The affair came out. The affair was a given now. You had plenty of time now to go back and be like, you know what? I did talk to you about this Target meeting. I did meet someone. I know I lied to you. I was trying to cover my affair. But now the affair is out. Everybody knew when she was arrested about this affair. Lied about that. Not explained.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. That inappropriately discusses her duty after she was arrested.
It's overruled.
Opening the safe at 2:03. Why'd she lie about that? I don't know the passcode. It's too hard to open. It was a deleted text. Remember that. So she thought it's gone. And the only way it was found again was those AT&T records that were subpoenaed that I'm sure she could never fathom would be subpoenaed. But why is she lying about the safe? It wasn't touched. I never opened it. I can't get in. She was in there because she opened it at 2:03. Why did she lie about the burner phone? Baker gave her that burner phone probably in her bedroom when he was in there. Why is she lying about that? She goes into this whole thing with Baker about making up a story about the burner phone, and I found it in the garage, and he's like, no, say I left it in your car. Well, why are we lying about a burner phone? We know you took it to Canada. You just got back from Canada. You just got back. It said, welcome to Canada. We know you had it, but she lies about it. Why? What's on the burner phone? What's the evidence? Again, the affair is exposed. The police car, we already talked about that. And finally, I get to the overhears. And this is where I'm going to play just a few of them for you. And that's going to be literally the last you hear from me, and I know you guys are going to be very excited about that. But these overhears, did you hear one explanation about the overhears? Their conversations that they had in custody. You didn't. Why? Because that's the first time that you hear the defendant talking her words, telling you of her involvement. We can talk about circumstantial evidence. We can talk about direct evidence. That is direct evidence. You hear her words, what she's saying to Baker, and Baker is saying to her, cannot be explained away. It cannot be explained away. It shows that there is a conspiracy to kill Fabio and that they did it together. Is it on?
No.
I think.
Visible?
Huh?
Visible? But
I don't know. That's the problem here.
gotcha.
And I can't put anything in a letter, so.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
That's the only thing that I'm. Or,
We'll try it a different way because it's not fully that way.
The detective told me that The detective told me. No.
I think.
Visible?
Huh?
Visible? But,
I don't know. That's the problem here.
gotcha.
But I can't put anything in a letter, so.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
That's the only thing that
Who's?
both, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what they read was, they said there was a figure or figures in the video, so they saw it. They didn't say what or nothing. They didn't say it was anybody or anything. Got it. What? That's retarded.
So that's how retarded this is, what I'm saying. You said you gave me a phone.
Fucking wrong.
I said, what? That's not true. That's bullshit. I knew it.
Fucking wrong. Good.
I found it in my garage. You never gave me nothing. They thought.
What? You?
They thought.
Oh.
But I wasn't. No deals. No, none.
I'm with you, okay? I'm with you. That's my baby.
I think they're gonna separate our trials. But if there's more evidence,
We just gotta wait and see what's coming in.
except our man.
Right. I'm not saying anything anyway.
But they can look so good, like it's, oh, this is it, case closed.
Yeah.
It twists everything.
Every fucking thing. Everything. Wait a minute. Did you see it? They told you. That means they cracked an account. Not that I know of, there's nothing. I don't know. Okay, I'm all in. I've been all in. I gave you my phone. I gave you. Oh, I sent that?
Yeah. And I said, I got this somewhere.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
On yours. Yeah. Oh,
I said the same thing. The truth. I found it.
no. is we have no defense without each other. If you do as much as I need you. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Resolute.
Yeah, me too. You don't understand what I'm trying to say. I can't say it out loud. How does it look, me writing to you, after they told me they found your DNA?
Well, you already explained to them.
I know that, and that for me and you, that's fine, but not for a jury. Did you read the part about, what's that?
You know. But that's an old life.
Yeah,
Time for a new one.
yeah.
And my new one's with my baby. I just want you to go home. Just don't forget about me. The only things I know about were the phone they took from me that day. In my father's house. I don't know others. You said I'm your lover, I'm your confidant, I'm your best friend. It's interesting. And it felt good even my words because he said it. That wasn't word.
Is that true?
I know. You gotta get ready. You gotta figure it out. You gotta figure it out. At least we gotta do your claim. You're already married to me already. You are my fucking wife. You're my everything. I love you. You have no idea. He not only kind of hinted at everyone, because he said, if you know something, I might be. I said, dude, don't even come at me like that ever again. I said,
My lawyer said the same thing.
I said, don't ever come at me ever again.
He said he thinks you're gonna make a deal.
Baby, you can't fucking do. I'll take you to my fucking grave. I'll take the blame with anything.
Hey, the cameras.
I'll take the blame. I'll lock and do it.
Listen, the cameras. The cameras.
Where?
At Target. They have a camera that has shoes. They have no video of it.
Of us? Yeah, I'm doing
The video was only for a month or two.
it. I know. And nothing like the other one at night too. There's nothing. Only thing is a couple of drops of my DNA, and you explained that already. That they took it. Or something, or maybe he took it. I don't know. So just what you have to say about that. Just kind of
I'm so scared.
And I had something in there.
what?
The thing that reminds you of flesh.
What is it? Don't say it. Damaging?
No, just asking me about the Target video.
Asking me about it?
Yeah. Like, have you seen the video?
Oh, okay.
I don't see anything.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's good. That's not bad. That's fine.
And something about the home camera surveillance systems.
Yeah.
I said, I hope you were in the area. I hope you didn't admit to being in the area because you were with
I
me.
didn't talk at all. I didn't say anything. I
That's what
said,
that's what that man said.
I was probably in the gym.
The sergeant had it and all of it, probably copied it away.
They get back to you.
Give me everything back.
You can have another.
Did you hear the audio? At the police car.
No, did you hear it? Anything?
Nothing that, I mean,
I didn't hear that. I haven't heard it. I haven't got that for you. Nothing. It just felt like
nothing really that's,
it was normal shit. It was normal shock.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was shocked and you were shocked. We were shocked. I can tell.
I saw the video of my interview.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I haven't heard
They
it.
were fucking with me so bad. And I answered the way I was supposed to.
Yeah, I didn't even answer it. I didn't even answer.
They haven't got into my phone. I think you do. I'm scared.
If this goes bad,
You hang in there.
how long? 50 years?
I know that, but they have nothing on it. Only drops of blood. That's
Where?
I I'm told it was a couple of drops in the kitchen. And gloves, some 5 drops, from the top. Has to be. Huh? It was not Monday. It was not Monday. It was not that day. It was. Because nobody saw it. Jessica said, no, my mom. No, not, we didn't play that day. We did, though. No, we did play. Yeah, we did. We did play. And she was there. And she was there, and she remembers me and her working out medicine. I think it was Monday, but if it wasn't Monday, it was Sunday. And, you know, it was one of those days. Right, I thought I didn't know. Yeah, it's that day, that morning, or the day before. I didn't make a point to remember that. I think it was an important thing because back in here, this thought. You told everybody something else. You never told everybody here, so. I never told I talked to nobody. They all, everyone in the gym said you were working on your car or something. That's what I told them. Listen, I want to see you. I want to see you. I see what you because I don't believe it. I don't know he has nothing to do with it. So if you can't show me any evidence that he did that, then I don't believe it. Because he wants you to go against him. I told mine, don't ever bring it up again. No. So every time he comes from he's on his Twitter, look out for you. I said, I know that, I appreciate it, but every single day, it's never. So-called secret phones and what the fuck was that? I've never been asked yet about the flip phone. I haven't been asked yet. No, but they said it, in the court. They said that bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? Everybody has phones. Yours. Gone. Gone. Right here. It broke. So I got rid of it. It was broken. It was on the and I had to do it the day before. What were the chances? It might be, but that shit is breaking. I'm not going to be again. I'm going to be with you. After I'm gone, I'm still be with you somehow. I'm not going. I told my mother I'm loyal. I'm a loyal motherfucker. I'm loyal. He looked at me. I said, I can't expect you to understand this, man. So I'm not. And I told him, I said, I will not take the fall.
You were not there with me when I went to Target. So I was just I hope you didn't say that you were, because then somebody looked like a liar, and I know you weren't there, so.
You showed me how it worked, and you said every now and again, if I'm on camera, this is what, I'll let you know, and do away that you know that's the extent of it. Mm-hmm. And they try to say that you're monitoring your shit.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me what my plan was. My plan with you was to wait for the girls to leave, and then us to leave. Together.
That was the ideal plan. Yeah, because it's hard to work the DNA or whatever, so we think that I don't know with you, and you did this without me.
Here's my choice of story. I'm a loyal guy. I've been through a lot of shit. I know. I know this sounds crazy. I will never forsake you. I will never walk away. I will never not walk away. So let's stop talking about that. I already know you feel it. See to win. I'm not worried about it. Stick with them. The only way this thing comes out the way it's supposed to is if it requires evidence. If I got to blatantly shock you and lie to a jury that they can't take it back and take the blame, I would have support of it. So I gotta stop to get off the constantly.
You'll have support if I get out. If I get out, you'll have support.
Sementilli, stop calling me that.
See, the marriage you can change it.
I'm planning on permanently changing my name, so please don't call me that anymore. No, text. Yeah, because I haven't gotten to the phone.
Yeah. One second. We saw each other.
No, beforehand.
Yeah, it's like that. No, you're here.
Yeah, but, I just hope there's nothing wrong there. They can't even get into my phone. This is all computer stuff.
Yeah, I don't even use that shit. The only thing you and I use is WhatsApp. Text me, sorry. Nothing.
Are you sure?
Oh, no. That's why I went. That's what I'm looking for. I never see anything. And even then, it was just going out. That stupid shit. Feel weird. You should be scared. I'm scared of it. I'm scared of it. But there's nothing you can do about it. You have to wait.
I don't want us to have to crazy.
Well, I wish opportunities to talk to each other.
I think this is the process.
It needs to somehow that needs to end. Somehow that really needs to end. Until you can talk to yours. But then with something that can help you along. Do I really know what they want? Just a lot. I would know that. Well, that's all. Yours is, you know, how would I tell you that I would do this when you were officially disowned? For like I said,
I'm really need to wait.
no,
So, let's see what happens.
I'm not the one that has to take the problem. You do. I'm sorry. I feel you. I'm just really crazy.
I want to go home. Otherwise, I'm done.
No, never.
No, they know that. They know that.
There's a reason why the defense didn't touch any of that in their closing. And he spent a full day when you combine yesterday and today. And that's because that's the most clear-cut thing that you can see, that these two conspired or were involved in this murder together. Not one of those clips was touched or explained by the defense, because it can't be. You actually get to hear the conversation that the defendant and Mr. Baker are having between each other after they're found out. And this is not about an affair. Remember, this is weeks after they've been arrested. The affair is long exposed. In fact, in the police car, she said, "I'm going to deny everything except the affair." That's the least of their worries. Right now, that panic, that conversation is about the murder. They've been found out. Yet, the defendant still maintains no remorse, no guilt, just sadness for herself that she wants to go home with him. How are they going to be together? That has been the theme. This defendant's all about herself. She wants the prize at the end. All that work, all that they did, and they almost pulled it off. And now not to get the reward, you can hear in the words spoken between them. She's devastated. She's devastated because she's not going to be able to be with Robert Baker. There are so many things in these overhears that we've just gone through that you've heard throughout this trial where they're coordinating that made-up story about the racquetball. Again, I think the defense laid off a little bit in their closing about that fake story. But again, why are you creating a fake story about why Baker's DNA would be in your house? You're creating it because you know that he murdered your husband, you were in on it, and you want to cover it. It's the simplest answers. We don't ask you as jurors to leave common sense at the door. Sometimes we get in here and we start overthinking and trying to be a detective ourselves, but that's not what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to listen to the evidence and use your common sense. That's why you were chosen. You also heard during this trial that there was a lot of stipulations. And so when you go back as jurors and you start looking at the evidence, you're going to get the evidence books. It's all the photographs, the audios, the recordings, anything that happened in court, you'll get back in the jury room. And you're free to go through everything that you want. In there's a lot of stipulations. And what that means is what both sides agreed on, that is, you accept that as true. One of them being the phone extractions. So there was some dispute about phone extractions, and specifically that one pho restaurant and lifestyle lounge. You'll see it with your own eyes. These are stipulated agreements between the defense.
I'm going to object, Your Honor, that misstates the evidence.
It's overruled in one moment. Again, it's your memory that controls, ladies and gentlemen, not the statements of counsel.
It's stipulated extractions, and their extractions are from LAPD, and you'll get to look at it right there. And what you heard Mr. Broom testify to, he's telling you what's there you don't see. It's stipulated agreements. It's extractions from LAPD.
No stipulation of truth, Your Honor.
Counsel, it's overruled. Counsel, I need to take a break unless you're about to wrap up.
I am.
Okay.
Okay. I know you have to wait. Okay, so anyway, that's for you as jurors to look at all the evidence. What I will say, we're at break time, is after these overhears, these things that you just heard that are very, very damaging to both sides because it exposes the real defendant and the real Mr. Baker. Defense attorney stated that there's no more communication since 2018 or something like that. There's no evidence of that. To this day, we don't know if they're communicating. We've seen the efforts that these two have made to get around it. But at some point, the resources of law enforcement have to call it and just move on with the case. So to say there's no more communication, again, we don't know that. What I'm going to finish with is reasonable doubt. It's been explained to you multiple times. You'll get the instruction. That's the standard that we're asking and the court asks you, and there's a law to follow to find this defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, reasonable is what it means, reasonable. It's not possible, it's reasonable. And again, just to read it, it's based on the entire comparison and consideration of all the evidence. Remember, not every single thing in this trial has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the elements of the charge of murder and conspiracy to commit murder and the allegations. The elements that are listed out for you in the jury instructions that will be read to you, that is what must be proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's what my co-counsel and I have done for the last 2 months. We've provided you with a lot of information, a lot of evidence, overwhelming evidence, words directly from the defendant. And one last thing I wanted to put up here was Luigi Sementilli. The defense used this. And I actually thought this was a good thing to end on with the prosecution. Because Luigi trusted the defendant. He went in with the presumption of innocence, you would say, in life, right? He accepted her into his family, presumed that she would never do something like this. And he gave her the benefit of the doubt, much like you started here with the presumption of innocence. But as Luigi said in the words of defense counsel, repeated backs, once you go back and start recollecting, it becomes very clear. The puzzle pieces fit together very easily. Things started to make sense again. And that was our job, to put the puzzle together tight for you, where every piece fit. And over the course of the last 2.5 months, my co-counsel and I have presented you those pieces, and the puzzle is complete. And we are asking you to go back during your deliberations and find the defendant guilty of the crime of murder of Fabio, of the crime of conspiring to murder her husband, and the special allegations of lying in wait, taking him by surprise, as well as the financial gain of that life insurance money that she was so consumed with receiving. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's only one thing left to do. It's instruct you in the law, which I'll do tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I want you fresh. You'll get the case very soon.